Harrison Pierce sat in the back of his black Mercedes, staring at the address on his phone screen. 4732 Oakwood Street, Detroit. The same house where he'd spent his first 18 years, where his mother had died when he was in college, where he'd locked the door for the last time 30 years ago and never looked back. His assistant Rachel had handled everything remotely over the decades. Property taxes, insurance, keeping squatters out. Now, at 52 years old and worth $3 billion, Harrison had finally returned to demolish it. The luxury condos his development company planned would erase every memory, every painful reminder of the poverty and struggle that had defined his youth. The car turned onto Oakwood Street and Harrison frowned. The neighborhood looked different. Cleaner. Trees he didn't remember lined the sidewalk, their branches heavy with spring leaves. Houses that had been falling apart now sported fresh paint and tidy yards. When the Mercedes stopped in front of 4732, Harrison's breath caught in his throat. This couldn't be right. The house he remembered was a peeling, sad structure with a sagging porch and broken windows. The yard had been overgrown with weeds, the fence collapsed. But the building before him now gleamed with fresh white paint and blue shutters. The porch had been rebuilt, a swing hanging from new chains. The yard burst with color, roses of every shade climbing trellises, flower beds bordering a stone pathway, vegetable plants in neat raised beds. Wind chimes sang in the breeze. Children's laughter echoed from somewhere behind the house. "Sir, are you certain this is the correct address?" his driver asked, equally confused. Harrison checked his phone again. "This is it. This is my property." He stepped out of the car, his expensive Italian shoes crunching on the gravel driveway. Someone had laid fresh gravel. Someone had planted those roses. Someone was living in his abandoned house, and they transformed it into something he barely recognized. As he approached the porch, the front door opened. A young African-American woman stepped out, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, wearing jeans and a bright red t-shirt. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17, but her eyes held a wariness that made her seem older. Behind her, 3 smaller children peered around the doorframe. 2 boys who looked about 12, identical twins with matching curious expressions, and a little girl around 8 with beaded braids and dirt on her knees. "Can I help you?" the young woman asked, her voice steady but cautious. She positioned herself between Harrison and the younger children, protective. Harrison's throat felt tight. "I'm Harrison Pierce. I own this property." The color drained from the young woman's face. The little girl behind her grabbed the doorframe, her eyes going wide. One of the twins whispered something to his brother. "You're the owner," the young woman said slowly. It wasn't a question. Her shoulders squared as though preparing for battle. "We didn't know anyone was paying attention to this place. We didn't know anyone cared." "What are you doing here?" Harrison asked, though the question felt absurd. They were clearly living here. Thriving here. The young woman lifted her chin. "My name is Destiny Carter. These are my siblings, Jerome and Jamal, they're 12. And that's Imani, she's 8. We've been living here for 8 months. We didn't break in. The back door was already broken. We fixed it. We fixed everything." Harrison looked past her at the porch, at the fresh paint, at the window boxes overflowing with petunias. "You did all this?" "Yes, sir." Destiny's voice was firm. "We didn't have anywhere else to go. But we took care of it. We made it beautiful again. We thought nobody wanted it anymore." The little girl Imani slipped past Destiny and walked right up to Harrison. She had the kind of fearless curiosity only 8-year-olds possessed. "Do you like the roses? I planted most of them. Miss Washington next door gave me cuttings. She said roses used to grow here a long time ago." Harrison's chest constricted. His mother's roses. His mother had grown roses in this same yard, every color imaginable. She tended them after her long shifts at the hospital, her hands gentle with the petals even when they were calloused from work. When she died, the roses had died too. Harrison had let them die. "Yes," he managed. "Roses did grow here. My mother grew them." Imani's face brightened. "Really? Then you'll be happy they're back. Come see." Before he could respond, she grabbed his hand with her small dirt-stained fingers and tugged him toward the side yard. Destiny started to protest, but Harrison found himself following the little girl, too shocked to resist. The side yard took his breath away. Roses climbed the fence in cascading waves of red, pink, yellow, and white. The same varieties his mother had loved. Mr. Lincoln, peace, double delight. Someone had built trellises and arbors. Someone had mulched and pruned and fed these plants with obvious love. In the center stood a small bench, painted green with a hand-lettered sign, "Hope Garden." "I made the sign," Imani announced proudly. Destiny helped with the spelling. We call it the Hope Garden because that's what Mama Rose always said. Gardens are made of hope. Mama Rose? Harrison's voice cracked. That's what we call Destiny's mama. She died before we came here, but Destiny tells us stories about her. Mama Rose said you can plant hope and watch it grow just like flowers. Harrison sat down heavily on the green bench. This child spoke of hope while living in an abandoned house. This child had recreated his mother's garden without knowing it had ever existed. The coincidence felt impossible, meaningful in a way he couldn't name. Destiny appeared at the garden entrance, her expression guarded. Imani, don't bother the man. Mr. Pierce, I know we're trespassing. I know you have every right to call the police. But please just give me a chance to explain. Please. The word please came out fractured, desperate. Harrison heard a lifetime of rejection in that single word, of doors closing, of adults who didn't listen. I'm not calling the police, he said quietly. Tell me your story. Destiny's eyes widened with surprise, then suspicion, then cautious hope. She sat on the grass in front of the bench, and the other children gathered around her. Jerome and Jamal flanked her sides like bookends. Imani plopped down cross-legged in front of Harrison, still holding a trowel from her gardening. I aged out of foster care last year, Destiny began. I was 16. They said I was old enough to be on my own, but I had these 3 to worry about. We'd been in the same group home for 2 years. Not really siblings by blood, but siblings where it counts. When I aged out, they were going to split us up. Send Jerome and Jamal to one home, Imani to another, me to some transitional living program. We're a family, Jerome interjected, his voice fierce. We belong together. So I ran, Destiny continued. I took them and we ran. I had some money saved from babysitting jobs. We stayed in shelters for a while, but they kept asking questions, wanting to contact social services. Then one day we were walking through this neighborhood and I saw this house. Beautiful bones, Mama Rose would have said, but falling apart. Windows broken, porch rotting, yard like a jungle. But empty. We watched it for 3 days. Nobody came. Nobody cared. We came inside just to sleep at first, Jamal added. He was quieter than his twin, more thoughtful. Just for one night. But then Destiny fixed the back door lock. And we cleaned one room. Then another room. I got a job at the library, Destiny said. Part-time, minimum wage, but enough for food and supplies. The boys take care of Imani after school. I enrolled them all in the local schools under my guardianship. Teachers never questioned it. We pay for everything we use. Electricity came on after I called the utility company and set up an account in my name, water too. We don't steal. We work for everything we have. Harrison listened, processing the enormity of what this teenager had accomplished. She kept 3 children housed, fed, educated, and safe for 8 months, all while working and attending school herself. She'd done what the foster system couldn't or wouldn't do, kept a family together. The garden was Imani's idea, Destiny said softly. She said even poor places can be beautiful if someone cares enough. So we started planting. Neighbors gave us seeds and cuttings. We learned from library books and YouTube videos. We painted the house with clearance paint from the hardware store. We fixed what we could fix. You made it beautiful, Harrison said, his voice rough with emotion he didn't expect. You made it more beautiful than it ever was when I lived here. Destiny's eyes met his, searching for truth. You really grew up here? Until I was 18. My mother raised me alone after my father died. She worked 3 jobs to keep this house, to keep me fed and clothed. She died of exhaustion, essentially. Worked herself to death so I could go to college. Harrison touched one of the rose blooms near the bench. These were her flowers. She said they represented survival. No matter how harsh the winter, roses come back. I'm sorry, Destiny said simply. About your mother. The words were plain, not flowery or dramatic, but they held genuine compassion. Harrison found himself telling these children things he'd never told anyone. How guilty he'd felt leaving his mother alone to chase his dreams, how he'd avoided this house for 30 years because it reminded him of everything he'd lost, how success had filled his bank accounts but left his life feeling hollow. Why did you come back now? Jerome asked with the blunt curiosity of a 12-year-old. To tear it down, Harrison admitted. I'm building luxury condos on this block. I bought up most of the properties. This was the last one. I plan to demolish it next week. Silence fell over the garden. Imani's eyes filled with tears. Jamal reached for his twin's hand. Destiny's face went carefully blank, the expression of someone who'd learned to hide hurt behind walls. When do we have to leave? Destiny asked quietly. Harrison looked at these 4 children who'd taken his abandoned, painful past and transformed it into something hopeful. They'd brought his mother's roses back to life. They'd painted the walls in cheerful colors. The house was blue and white now, not the dingy gray he remembered. They'd rebuilt the porch where he'd sat with his father before cancer took him. They'd turned his graveyard of memories into a home filled with laughter and love. An idea formed in his mind, audacious and completely contrary to every business instinct he'd honed over 3 decades. "You don't have to leave," he heard himself say. "Not yet. Give me some time to think about this. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll figure something out." Destiny's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Figure what out?" "I don't know yet," Harrison admitted. "But I'm not going to put 4 kids on the street. That's not happening." "Why would you help us?" Destiny challenged. "You don't know us. We're trespassers on your property. You should call the police, call social services, get us out of here. That's what anyone else would do." Harrison stood up from the bench and looked at the house, at the garden, at these children who'd shown more courage and resilience than most adults he knew. "Maybe I'm tired of doing what everyone else would do. Maybe I want to do what my mother would have done." "What's that?" Imani asked, wiping her eyes. "The right thing," Harrison said simply. "She always chose kindness even when it cost her. Especially when it cost her." He pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to Destiny. "This has my cell number. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. Anything." Destiny took the card with trembling fingers, reading it slowly. "Harrison Pierce, CEO, Pierce Technologies." Her eyes widened. "You're that Harrison Pierce? The billionaire tech guy?" "Yes." "And you're really not going to kick us out today?" "No. I need to think. You've turned my whole plan upside down in the best possible way." Harrison looked at each child in turn. "Keep taking care of this place. Keep going to school. Keep being a family. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon." As he walked back to his car, Imani called out, "Mr. Harrison? Thank you for not being mean about the roses." He turned back to see all 4 children standing on the porch he'd played on as a boy, in front of the door he'd walked through 1,000 times. They looked scared and hopeful in equal measure, holding on to each other in a tight cluster. "Thank you for planting them," he called back. "My mother would have loved what you've done here." In the car, Rachel was waiting with her tablet full of demolition schedules and condo blueprints. "Sir, what's the situation? Should I call the authorities about the squatters?" Harrison looked back at the house one more time. Through the window, he could see Destiny gathering the children for what looked like a serious conversation. Probably warning them not to get their hopes up, that adults always disappointed, that they needed to prepare for the worst. She was wrong this time. Harrison didn't know exactly what he was going to do, but he knew those children weren't going anywhere. Something had shifted in his chest during that conversation in his mother's rose garden. Something that felt like purpose awakening after a long sleep. "Change of plans, Rachel," he said. "Cancel the demolition. Indefinitely." "Sir?" "You heard me. Cancel it. And clear my schedule for tomorrow afternoon. I have a house to visit." "But the development project." "We'll wait," Harrison said firmly. "Some things are more important than profit margins." Rachel stared at him as though he'd spoken in a foreign language, but she made notes on her tablet. As the car pulled away from Oakwood Street, Harrison watched the house recede in the side mirror. The house that was supposed to represent his painful past had somehow become a doorway to something new, something he hadn't even known he was searching for. That night, Harrison couldn't sleep. He sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the Detroit River, surrounded by expensive furniture and art he'd never really looked at, and thought about 4 children sleeping in his childhood home. He thought about Destiny's fierce protectiveness, Jerome's curiosity, Jamal's quiet thoughtfulness, Imani's fearless joy. He thought about his mother working herself to death so he could have opportunities, and about these children creating opportunities for themselves out of nothing but determination and hope. By morning, Harrison knew what he had to do. It terrified him and excited him in equal measure. His carefully constructed life of business deals and shareholder meetings suddenly felt small compared to the possibility unfolding in his mind. At 3 p.m. the next day, he returned to 4732 Oakwood Street. This time he came alone, without Rachel or his driver. He parked his own car on the street and walked up the stone pathway Imani had probably helped create. Destiny answered the door before he could knock, as though she'd been watching for him. Her face was guarded but clean of tears, which told him she'd done her crying in private, away from the little ones. "Mr. Pierce," she said formally, "please come in." The inside of the house stunned him as much as the outside had. The rooms he remembered as dark and cramped now felt open and bright. Someone had painted the walls in cheerful colors. Soft yellow in the living room, light blue in the hallway. Furniture that looked salvaged from thrift stores had been arranged with care. Bookshelves overflowed with library books and textbooks. Children's artwork covered one wall. Jamal's paintings, vivid and imaginative. Photographs in mismatched frames showed the four children together. At the park, in the garden, making silly faces at the camera. This was a home. Not a house, but a home filled with love and laughter and the evidence of children being children. It reminded Harrison painfully of his own childhood, when his mother had made this same house warm despite their poverty. The children sat on the couch together, Jerome and Jamal on either side of Imani, all of them watching Harrison with anxious eyes. Destiny stood between them and Harrison, still protective despite the fact that he was twice her size. "I've made a decision," Harrison said, sitting in the armchair across from them. He wanted to be at their eye level, not towering over them. "But first, I need to know something. Destiny, if you could have anything in the world for yourself and your siblings, what would it be? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to lose everything, only to find that losing everything was exactly what you needed? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in Harrison's position?" Destiny blinked, clearly not expecting the question. "I don't understand. If there were no limits, no obstacles, what would your perfect life look like?" She glanced at the children, then back at Harrison. When she spoke, her voice was steady but soft. "I'd want us to stay together. Always. I'd want the boys to go to college, both of them. Jerome wants to be an engineer. Jamal wants to study art. I'd want Imani to keep her garden and never worry about being hungry or cold. I'd want to finish school myself, maybe go to college too. I'd want to help other kids like us, kids the system forgets." She paused, then added quietly, "And I'd want to stay in this house. It's the first place that's ever felt like home." Harrison felt his throat tighten. "Then that's what's going to happen." "What?" Destiny's voice cracked. "You're going to stay here. All of you. I'm canceling the demolition permanently. This house is yours for as long as you want it." The silence that followed was absolute. Jerome and Jamal exchanged glances of disbelief. Imani's mouth fell open. Destiny just stared at Harrison as though he'd spoken in another language. "I don't understand," Destiny finally said. "You're just giving us your house?" "I'm doing more than that," Harrison said. "I'm going to set up a trust fund for the property so it legally belongs to you four. I'm going to arrange for legal guardianship so no one can separate you. I'm going to make sure you have everything you need: food, clothes, school supplies, medical care. And when you're ready for college, all of you, that's covered too." "Why?" The word burst from Destiny like a sob. "Why would you do this? We're nobody. We're just foster kids who broke into your house. You didn't break in. You brought it back to life." Harrison leaned forward, his voice intense. "Destiny, do you know what I saw when I drove up yesterday? I saw everything my mother built and believed in, still alive in this house. She grew roses because they symbolized hope and resilience. She taught me that kindness matters more than money. She worked herself to death believing that if she sacrificed enough, I could have a better life. And I did. I got rich. I got successful. But somewhere along the way I forgot what she taught me. I forgot about kindness and hope and helping people who need it." He gestured around the room. "You four reminded me. You took an abandoned, broken house and made it beautiful. You created a family when the system wanted to tear you apart. You planted roses in the same spot my mother planted them 30 years ago, without knowing they'd been there before. That's not a coincidence. I don't know what that is, but it means something." Tears streamed down Destiny's face now. "We can really stay? You can really stay? I'll have lawyers draw up the paperwork. Everything legal and proper. No one will be able to take this house or separate you. I promise." Imani launched herself off the couch and threw her arms around Harrison's neck. He caught her instinctively, feeling the small body shake with sobs against his shoulder. Jerome and Jamal were crying too, holding on to each other. Destiny sat frozen, as though afraid to believe any of this was real. "Thank you," Imani whispered against his neck. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Harrison held the little girl and let his own tears fall. When was the last time he'd cried? When was the last time he'd felt this kind of profound rightness about a decision? All his business successes, all his wealth and accolades, paled in comparison to this moment. For children who would stay together because he chose kindness over profit. After Imani finally let go and returned to the couch, Harrison pulled out his phone. "I need some information from all of you. Full names, birth dates, social security numbers if you have them. School information. Medical history. Everything. My lawyers needed to start the legal process. Destiny wiped her eyes and nodded. She retrieved a folder from a desk in the corner, organized and neat, containing every document about the children. Birth certificates, school records, medical papers from the group home. She kept everything safe, prepared for questions, prepared to prove they were worthy of being a family. Harrison photographed each document, sent them to his legal team with a message: priority. Need legal guardianship and property trust established immediately. Spare no expense. What happens now? Jerome asked. He'd stopped crying but his eyes were still red. Now we figure out the details, Harrison said. I'll come by regularly to check on you until the legal stuff is settled. Probably a few weeks. In the meantime, I'm setting up accounts at the grocery store and the hardware store in your name, Destiny. Get whatever you need. Food, supplies, anything for the house. I'll handle the bills. I can't accept, Destiny started, but Harrison held up his hand. Yes, you can. You have to. These kids need to eat. They need clothes and school supplies. You need help. There's no shame in accepting help when it's offered freely. Destiny swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay, yes. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough. Take care of my mother's roses, Harrison said with a small smile. That's thanks enough. Over the next hour they talked about practical matters. Harrison learned that Destiny worked 20 hours a week at the library while attending high school online. Jerome and Jamal were honor students who helped Imani with her homework every day. Imani sold roses to neighbors for quarters, saving every penny in a jar to help Destiny buy groceries. They showed him around the house, pointing out every repair they'd made, every improvement. Jerome had fixed the plumbing in the bathroom using YouTube tutorials. Jamal had restored the hardwood floors in the hallway by hand. Destiny had insulated the attic with materials she'd found on sale. Imani's garden provided vegetables that supplemented their meals. These children had accomplished more with nothing than most people did with everything. Harrison felt humbled and inspired in equal measure. As the sun set and he prepared to leave, Imani tugged on his sleeve. Mr. Harrison? Will you come to dinner tomorrow? I'm making spaghetti. Destiny taught me. Harrison looked at Destiny, who nodded shyly. You're welcome anytime. It's your house after all. No, Harrison corrected gently. It's your house. I'm just the person who used to live here. But yes, I'd love to come to dinner. Driving home that night, Harrison called Rachel. Cancel my afternoon meetings for the next month. Every afternoon from 2 to 6 p.m., I'm unavailable. Sir? That's highly irregular. I don't care. Block it out. I have more important things to do. May I ask what? Harrison smiled at the road ahead. I'm going to visit my house. The house I grew up in. The house I almost destroyed. I'm going to get to know the people who saved it. Rachel was silent for a long moment. Sir, are you feeling all right? For the first time in 30 years, Harrison said, I'm feeling exactly right. Harrison arrived at 4732 Oakwood Street the next afternoon carrying bags from the grocery store. He'd meant to buy a few essentials, but somehow the cart had filled with fresh fruit, vegetables, good cuts of meat, pasta, sauce, bread, milk, juice, and enough snacks to feed an army. He'd stood in the cereal aisle for 10 minutes trying to remember what 12-year-olds liked, eventually buying 6 different kinds. Destiny opened the door, her eyes widening at the grocery bags. Mr. Pierce, you didn't have to. I wanted to, he said simply. And please call me Harrison. Mr. Pierce was my father. She smiled, a real smile this time, not the guarded expression she'd worn yesterday. Okay, Harrison, come in. The children helped carry in the bags, exclaiming over items they hadn't tasted in months. Fresh strawberries. Real orange juice, not the powder mix. Chocolate chip cookies. Jerome and Jamal high-fived each other over a box of Lucky Charms. Imani hugged a bag of apples like they were precious gems. You guys act like I brought gold, Harrison said, amused but also heartbroken. These simple groceries were treasures to children who'd been rationing food for months. Better than gold, Jamal said solemnly. You can't eat gold. While Destiny put away the groceries with practiced efficiency, organizing everything neatly in the small kitchen, Harrison sat at the kitchen table with the kids. The table itself was a salvaged piece, refinished by hand with mismatched chairs painted in bright colors. One red, one green, one blue, one yellow. Tell me about school, Harrison said. What are you studying? Jerome lit up immediately. I'm doing a science project on renewable energy. I built a model solar panel from stuff I found at the thrift store. It actually works. I can charge a phone with it. That's impressive. Can you show me? Jerome raced upstairs and returned with a contraption made of old picture frames, aluminum foil, wire, and a small solar cell. He explained the concept with the enthusiasm of someone who'd found their passion. Harrison listened intently, asking questions, encouraging the boy's obvious gift for engineering. Jamal showed Harrison his art portfolio, filled with paintings and drawings of the neighborhood, the garden, his siblings. One painting in particular caught Harrison's attention. The house at sunrise, roses climbing the fence, light breaking through clouds overhead. The technique was raw, but the feeling behind it was profound. This is really good, Jamal, Harrison said honestly. Have you thought about art school? Jamal's face flushed with pleasure. I didn't think that was possible for someone like me. Why not? Art school is expensive. And I'm just a foster kid who paints on clearance canvases. Harrison felt a familiar anger rise in his chest, not at the boy but at a system that taught children to limit their dreams before they even tried. You're not just anything. You're an artist. And yes, you're going to art school if that's what you want. I meant what I said yesterday. College is covered for all of you. The look on Jamal's face, pure disbelief mixed with dawning hope, would stay with Harrison for the rest of his life. Imani showed Harrison her garden journal, a composition notebook where she'd drawn pictures of each plant and written down when she'd planted it, what it needed, how it was growing. The handwriting was careful, the drawings detailed for an 8-year-old. Miss Washington helps me sometimes, Imani explained. She's lived next door for 50 years. She says she remembers your mama's roses. Does she? Harrison's heart clenched. I'd like to talk to her. She's usually home. Want to go now? Harrison found himself being led by the hand through the garden and over to the neighboring house, a neat bungalow with a well-maintained yard. An elderly African-American woman answered the door, her white hair in a bun, her eyes sharp and kind behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Washington? Harrison said. I'm Harrison Pierce. I used to live next door. Her face transformed with recognition and pleasure. Little Harry Pierce. My goodness, look at you all grown up. Come in, come in. And hello to you too, sweet Imani. Mrs. Washington's living room was cozy and filled with photographs of families spanning decades. She made tea and settled into her armchair with the ease of someone who'd sat there thousands of times. I heard you came back, she said. Destiny was so worried you'd make them leave. That girl has been the best thing to happen to this block in years. Those children are special. I'm not making them leave, Harrison assured her. I'm helping them stay. Legally and permanently. Mrs. Washington's eyes filled with tears. Bless you. Bless you for seeing what they need. Tell me about my mother's roses, Harrison asked. Imani said you remember them. Oh, your mama loved those roses. She'd come home from her shifts at the hospital, exhausted beyond words, and she'd still go straight to her garden. She said tending beauty kept her soul alive when work tried to kill it. She had such a green thumb. Everything she touched bloomed. Mrs. Washington smiled at the memory. When she passed, God rest her, those roses died within a year. It was like they knew she was gone. The whole yard went to weeds. The house started falling apart. Broke my heart to watch it. I should have come back, Harrison said quietly. I should have taken care of it. You were grieving, baby. Sometimes we run from pain instead of sitting with it. No judgment here. She patted his hand. But those children, they brought your mama's garden back to life. Imani came over last summer, shy as can be, and asked if I had any rose cuttings. Said she wanted to make the sad house happy again. How could I say no to that? Imani beamed at the praise. I gave her cuttings from my own roses, which came from your mama's roses originally. She'd shared them with the whole block back in the day. So in a way your mama's roses never really died. They were just waiting to come home. Harrison had to look away to compose himself. The idea that his mother's roses had survived through the neighborhood, passed from garden to garden, and then returned to her yard through an 8-year-old orphan was almost too much to bear. These children are miracles, Mrs. Washington continued. Destiny works so hard. The boys are respectful and helpful. Imani brings joy wherever she goes. They've turned that house into a home again. The whole neighborhood has been rooting for them, hoping someone would let them stay. They're staying, Harrison said firmly. I'm making sure of it. Mrs. Washington squeezed his hand. Your mama would be proud. She always said you had a good heart under all that ambition. She just worried the world would make you forget how to use it. Back at the house, Harrison helped Imani with dinner preparation. She insisted he wash vegetables while she carefully measured pasta under Destiny's supervision. Jerome set the table with mismatched plates. Jamal folded napkins into elaborate shapes, demonstrating his artistic flair. Dinner was simple: spaghetti with marinara sauce, garlic bread, salad. But it was one of the best meals Harrison had eaten in years, not because of the food quality but because of the company. The children talked over each other, laughing, teasing, telling stories about school and neighbors and funny things that had happened. Destiny refereed gently, making sure everyone got a chance to speak, reminding Imani to use her napkin, asking Jerome about his science project deadline. She was 17 years old, acting as mother to 3 children, and doing it with more grace than many adults Harrison knew. The weight of that responsibility showed in the moments when she thought no one was looking, when her smile faded and worry creased her forehead. But around the children, she was steady and warm, giving them the stability they desperately needed. After dinner, while the kids cleared the table and washed dishes, Harrison and Destiny sat on the porch swing. The evening air was cool and pleasant, carrying the scent of roses from the garden. Streetlights flickered on as dusk settled over the neighborhood. "I need to know the whole story," Harrison said gently. "Not just the highlights. If I'm going to help you properly, I need to understand everything." Destiny was quiet for a long moment, pushing the swing gently with her foot. When she spoke, her voice was low, meant only for his ears. "My mom died when I was 14. Drug overdose. I never knew my father. I went into foster care and it was bad. Really bad. Some homes were neglectful. One was abusive. I learned to keep my head down, to not cause problems, to protect myself." Harrison listened without interrupting, his chest tight with anger at a system that had failed this girl so completely. "At 15 I ended up in a group home. That's where I met Jerome, Jamal, and Imani. They'd all been through their own traumas. Jerome and Jamal's parents died in a car accident. Imani was removed from her home because of neglect. We found each other. We became family in a place that didn't feel like a family at all." She twisted her hands in her lap, a nervous gesture. "When I turned 16 they said I was aging out. I could go to a transitional living program but the kids would stay in the group home. They said the boys might get placed together but probably not with Imani. I couldn't let that happen. These kids had already lost everything. I wasn't going to let them lose each other too. So you took them and ran." "So I took them and ran," she confirmed. "We survived on the street for a few weeks. Shelters mostly. But shelters ask questions. They want to contact family, social services. I knew if we stayed we'd be separated. Then I found this house." She looked at the structure around them, at the blue shutters and white paint. It was falling apart but it had good bones. And it was empty. So we moved in. I got a fake ID that made me 18 so I could work and sign leases. I enrolled the kids in school under my guardianship. I thought if we just stayed quiet, stayed under the radar, we could make it work." "And you did," Harrison said. "For 8 months you kept 3 children safe, housed, and in school. That's remarkable." "That's terrifying," Destiny corrected. "Every day I wake up scared someone will find out. Scared social services will come. Scared we'll get separated. I know what happens to kids who get split up. They lose touch. They end up in different cities, different states. The system doesn't care about keeping siblings together. There's no money in it, no incentive. It's easier to place kids separately." Her voice broke. "I can't lose them, Harrison. They're all I have. They're all I am. Without them, I'm just another statistic, another foster kid who aged out and disappeared. With them, I'm a sister. I'm a mother. I'm someone who matters." Harrison felt his own eyes sting with tears. "You matter either way. But I understand what you mean. They make you family." "They make me family," she echoed. "What about your education? You said you're doing high school online?" "I dropped out when I turned 16 technically. But I've been studying for my GED. I take the test next month. After that." She shrugged. "I don't know. College seems impossible. I need to work full-time once I finish the GED. The library job won't be enough when the kids get older. They need things. Clothes that fit, school supplies, activities. I can't give them what they deserve on minimum wage. What do you want to do? If money wasn't an obstacle, what would you study?" Destiny laughed, a sad sound. "Social work, probably. I want to help kids like us. Kids who fall through the cracks. But that requires a degree, certification, years of school I can't afford." "You can now," Harrison reminded her. "I meant what I said. Education is covered. All of you. That includes you." She turned to look at him, her eyes wide in the gathering darkness. "Why are you doing this? Really? Not the story about your mother's roses, as beautiful as that is. Why are you willing to give so much to complete strangers?" Harrison considered the question carefully. Because 30 years ago I was a kid desperate to escape poverty. My mother sacrificed everything so I could go to college so I could have opportunities she never had. I succeeded. I built a company worth billions. But I forgot why I wanted success in the first place. I forgot about the people who needed help the way I once needed help. He gestured at the house, the garden, the light spilling from the windows where the children moved around inside. You four reminded me what matters. Not profit margins or stock prices or luxury condos. People matter. Families matter. Keeping children safe and together matters. My mother died believing I'd use my success to make the world better. I haven't done that. I've just made myself richer. That's changing now, Destiny said softly. That's changing now, Harrison agreed. Starting with you four. You're not a charity case, Destiny. You're an investment in the future. Jerome could be an engineer who develops clean energy. Jamal could be an artist who brings beauty to the world. Imani could be a botanist or environmentalist. And you could be a social worker who saves kids the system wants to forget. That's worth more than any condo development. Destiny wiped her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me help. Say you'll accept what I'm offering without guilt or shame. Say you'll trust that this is real and permanent. I want to, she whispered. But I've been disappointed so many times. Adults promise things they don't deliver. They say they care, then they leave. How do I know you won't change your mind? Harrison pulled out his phone and showed her the email thread with his lawyers. Look, legal documents in progress. Guardianship paperwork being filed tomorrow. Property trust being established. I'm putting everything in writing, Destiny. Legal and binding. I can't just change my mind and walk away. This is real. She read the email slowly, her lips moving silently. When she looked up, tears streamed down her face. You're really doing this. You're really keeping us together. I'm really doing this. Destiny launched herself at him in a hug that nearly knocked him off the swing. She sobbed against his shoulder, all the fear and stress and exhaustion of the past year pouring out. Harrison held her, this brave teenager who'd been forced to be an adult too soon, and let her cry. When she finally pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. Thank you. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for caring. Thank you for giving us a chance. Thank you for saving this house, Harrison said. Thank you for bringing beauty back to a place I'd written off as hopeless. You did that. You and these kids. You created hope from nothing. They sat together in comfortable silence, rocking gently on the swing as full darkness fell. Through the window they could see Jerome helping Imani with her homework, their heads bent over a math worksheet. Jamal painted at the kitchen table, his brush moving with confident strokes. The scene was ordinary and perfect, the kind of peaceful evening Harrison had dreamed of as a lonely kid in this same house. Tell me about the library, Harrison said eventually. You work there? Destiny nodded, composed again. 20 hours a week. I shelve books, help with programs, assist patrons with computers. Mrs. Chin, the head librarian, hired me even though I was only 16. She didn't ask too many questions. She just saw I needed work and gave me a chance. She sounds like a good person. She is. She lets me bring Imani sometimes when school's out. Imani reads in the children's section while I work. Mrs. Chin brings her cookies and milk. Destiny smiled at the memory. She knows our situation isn't normal, but she's never reported us. She's been an ally. I'd like to meet her, Harrison said. To thank her. She'd like that. She asks about you sometimes. About me? I mentioned the property owner was supposed to come eventually. She knows this neighborhood. She said she remembered a woman who used to bring books back late with apologies and rose petals pressed between the pages. Your mother? Harrison laughed, the sound surprised and delighted. That sounds exactly like her. She loved reading. She'd fall asleep with library books in her lap after her shifts. And she was always pressing flowers. Mrs. Chin kept one of the rose petal bookmarks. She showed it to me once. She said your mother had kind eyes and always thanked the library staff like they were doing her a personal favor. The connection between his past and present felt deliberate, as though the universe was weaving everything together with careful hands. His mother's roses, grown by an orphaned child. His mother's pressed flowers, preserved by a librarian who employed another orphaned child. The house he'd abandoned, brought back to life by children who needed it as desperately as he once had. My mother believed in signs, Harrison said quietly. She believed the universe guided us toward what we needed, if we paid attention. I stopped paying attention years ago. Maybe this is the universe dragging me back to what matters. Or maybe you're just a good person, Destiny suggested. Maybe you saw kids in trouble and decided to help. That's not the universe. That's you choosing to do the right thing. Maybe, Harrison conceded. But it feels like more than coincidence. The front door opened and Imani poked her head out. Destiny? I finished my homework. Can we play a game before bed? Sure, sweetie. Come pick one. Imani disappeared back inside and Destiny stood. Want to join us? We usually play Uno or checkers. I'd love to. Harrison spent the next hour playing board games with 4 children in his childhood living room. They laughed and teased each other, argued good-naturedly about rules, celebrated victories with high fives and groans at defeats. Jerome won at checkers through strategic thinking. Jamal won at Uno through pure luck and dramatic card playing. Imani insisted on playing a game she'd invented that had no discernible rules but involved everyone laughing until their sides hurt. At 8:30, Destiny announced bedtime for Imani. The little girl protested but eventually hugged everyone goodnight, including Harrison. Will you come back tomorrow? She asked. If you want me to. I want you to. You're fun. After Imani went upstairs with Destiny, Harrison sat with Jerome and Jamal. The twins had another hour before their own bedtime, and they were working on homework at the kitchen table. Can I ask you something? Jerome said, looking up from his math textbook. Of course. Why did you leave this house and never come back? Was it that bad here? Harrison considered how to answer honestly without making his mother sound like a failure. It wasn't bad. My mother made it good. But it was hard. We were poor. She worked constantly. I watched her age faster than she should have, saw her health deteriorate from exhaustion. When she died, I was angry at this house, at this neighborhood, at the poverty that killed her. So I left and didn't look back. Do you regret it? Jamal asked quietly. Leaving? I regret not coming back sooner. I regret letting anger keep me away from a place that held good memories too. My mother loved this house. She loved her garden. She loved this neighborhood and the people in it. I should have honored that instead of running from it. You're here now, Jerome pointed out with 12-year-old practicality. That counts for something. It does, Harrison agreed. And I'm not leaving again. Not really. This house is important to me again because of you 4. We fixed it up pretty good, right? Jamal said with a grin. You fixed it up better than good. You made it beautiful. You made it a home. The boys returned to their homework, and Harrison helped Jerome work through algebra problems. The kid was sharp, grasping concepts quickly and applying them creatively. With proper education and resources, Jerome could go far. The same was true of all these children. They had potential waiting to be tapped, dreams waiting to be funded, futures waiting to unfold. Harrison had spent 3 decades building wealth. Finally, he had something meaningful to spend it on. When Destiny came back downstairs, she found Harrison washing the game pieces they'd used, organizing them carefully back into their boxes. She smiled at the sight of this billionaire CEO doing dishes in her kitchen like it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't have to do that, she said. I know. I want to. They worked together in comfortable silence, cleaning up the evening's activities. Harrison found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. No business calls. No emails demanding immediate attention. Just simple tasks with good company, in a house that was starting to feel like home again. Before he left, Harrison gave Destiny his credit card. For groceries and whatever else you need. Use it freely. Don't try to ration or save. Get what you need and want. She took the card with trembling hands. This is too much. It's not enough, Harrison corrected. But it's a start. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. We're going to make this permanent, Destiny. I promise you that. Driving home that night, Harrison felt lighter than he had in years. His penthouse apartment felt empty and cold after the warmth of the house on Oakwood Street. He looked around at his expensive furniture, his wall of windows overlooking the city, his kitchen that never got used, and felt a strange disconnect. This wasn't home. This was just where he slept. Home was a house full of children's laughter and mismatched furniture and gardens full of roses. Home was where his mother had loved him and where 4 orphan kids had created family from nothing. Home was a place he tried to forget and failed, because some places marked your soul too deeply to ever truly leave. Harrison called his assistant Rachel. I need you to do something for me tomorrow. Of course, sir. What do you need? Contact the best family lawyer in Michigan. Tell them I'm adopting 4 children and need the process expedited. Money is no object. I want this done as quickly as legally possible. Rachel was silent for a beat. Sir, did you say adopting? I did. 4 children ages 8 to 17. I'm becoming their legal guardian and then officially adopting them. Start the paperwork. May I ask? You may not, Harrison said, not unkindly. Just trust that this is the right thing. The most right thing I've done in my entire life. After he hung up, Harrison walked to his window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, 4 children were sleeping safely in his childhood home. Tomorrow he'd start the process of making that safety permanent. Tomorrow and every day after, he'd show up for them the way his mother had shown up for him. Harrison didn't sleep well that night. His mind kept drifting back to the house, to the children, to the decisions he was making. Around 3 a.m. he gave up on sleep entirely and sat at his desk, looking through old photographs he'd kept in a box for 30 years but never opened. His mother smiled out at him from faded pictures. There she was in her nurse's uniform, exhausted but happy. There she was in the garden, dirt on her knees, roses blooming around her. There she was with a young Harrison, both of them laughing at something long forgotten. She'd been beautiful, his mother. Not in a conventional way, but in the way of people who carry light inside them despite life's attempts to snuff it out. In one photograph, she stood in front of the house on Oakwood Street, her hand resting on the porch railing. The paint was peeling even then and the yard was overgrown. But she was smiling, proud of this small place she'd managed to keep despite overwhelming odds. "I'm sorry, Mom," Harrison whispered to the photograph. "I'm sorry I stayed away so long. I'm sorry I let your house fall apart. I'm sorry I forgot what you taught me." His phone buzzed with an email from his lawyer. Even at 3 a.m., the man was working, assembling the documents Harrison had requested. Guardianship papers. Adoption petitions. Property trust agreements. Everything needed to make 4 children legally his. The magnitude of what he was doing hit Harrison all at once. He was 48 years old, unmarried, childless by choice. His life was organized around business meetings and board presentations and quarterly earnings reports. In the space of 48 hours, he decided to become a father to 4 traumatized children who'd already lost everyone they loved. Was he insane? Probably. Was it too late to back out? Legally, no. Morally, absolutely. He thought about Destiny's face when he'd promised to help them. The disbelief. The cautious hope. The tears when she finally believed him. He thought about Imani's gap-toothed grin and dirt-stained hands. Jerome's passion for science. Jamal's quiet artistry. These children had already lost so much. They'd survived through sheer determination and love for each other. Harrison couldn't fail them. He wouldn't fail them. Whatever it took, however his life needed to change, he'd make it work. At dawn, he finally drifted into a fitful sleep at his desk, his head resting on his arms, surrounded by photographs of his mother and legal documents about his future children. Rachel found him there at 8 a.m., her tablet in hand, ready to brief him on the day's meetings. She stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Her normally impeccable boss asleep at his desk, old photographs scattered around him, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. "Sir?" she said gently. Harrison jerked awake, disoriented. "Rachel. What time is it?" 8 o'clock. "You have a board meeting at 9, a conference call at 10, lunch with investors at noon." "Cancel everything," Harrison interrupted. "Sir?" "Cancel everything. Today, tomorrow, the rest of the week. Clear my schedule." Rachel's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "Mr. Pierce, are you feeling well? This is very unlike you." Harrison stood and stretched, his back protesting from sleeping at the desk. "I'm feeling better than I have in years actually. But my priorities have changed. Dramatically." He gathered the photographs carefully, returning them to their box. "I'm adopting 4 children, Rachel. I need time to make it happen properly." "You're adopting." Rachel set her tablet down slowly, as though the world had tilted and she needed to steady herself. "Sir, with respect, you've never mentioned wanting children. You've said numerous times that parenthood wasn't for you." "I was wrong," Harrison said simply. "I met these kids 2 days ago and everything changed. They're living in my childhood home. They've transformed it into something beautiful. They need a family and I don't know what I need, but they're part of it." He picked up one photograph of his mother and showed it to Rachel. "My mother raised me alone. She sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities. She died believing I'd do something meaningful with my success. I haven't. I've just accumulated money and built a company. But these kids? Helping them is meaningful. Giving them a future is meaningful. This is what my mother would have wanted." Rachel was silent, studying the photograph, studying Harrison's face. Finally she said, "All right. I'll clear your schedule. But the board will have questions. Let them question. I'm still running the company. I'm just not letting it run me anymore." "Understood." "Understood." Rachel picked up her tablet and began canceling appointments with efficient keystrokes. "For what it's worth, sir, I think your mother would be proud." Harrison felt his throat tighten. "Thank you, Rachel." After she left, Harrison showered and changed, then headed to the bank. He established accounts in Destiny's name, transferring enough money to cover expenses for the next year without requiring her to work. Then he visited the hardware store and set up an account for house repairs. The grocery store. The pharmacy. Every place the family might need access to resources. By noon, he'd arranged for the electric company to upgrade the service to the house on Oakwood Street, for the gas company to inspect and service the heating system, for a plumber to check all the pipes. He wasn't just helping the children survive. He was giving them comfort, security, the kind of safety net his mother had never had. At 2 p.m. he arrived at the house with more groceries, this time focusing on basics. Flour, sugar, eggs, butter, spices, cooking oil. Building blocks for real meals, not just prepackaged convenience foods. Destiny answered the door in her library uniform. Black pants and a green polo shirt with the library logo. "I have to leave for work in an hour," she said apologetically. "Mrs. Washington will watch the kids." "I'll watch them," Harrison offered. "If that's okay with you." Destiny hesitated, old instincts warning her against trusting adults with her siblings. But she looked at Harrison's open expression, at the grocery bags in his hands, at the kindness in his eyes, and decided to trust. "Okay," she said. "But Jerome is in charge. He knows the rules." "I'll follow his lead," Harrison promised. After Destiny left for work, Harrison spent the afternoon with the 3 younger children. Jerome showed him the science project in detail, explaining solar cell efficiency and energy conversion. Harrison listened with genuine interest, occasionally asking questions that made Jerome think deeper about his project. Jamal set up his paints in the backyard and worked on a new canvas while Harrison and Imani weeded the garden. The little girl chattered constantly, telling him about each plant, what it needed, what insects were helpful and which were harmful. She'd learned all of this from books and observation, her 8-year-old mind soaking up knowledge like a sponge. "Miss Washington says I have a gift," Imani announced proudly, pulling a weed from around a tomato plant. "She says not everyone can make things grow like I do." "She's right," Harrison said. "You definitely have a gift. My mother had it too. I wish I could have met your mama. She sounds nice. She would have loved you. She would have loved all of you." Imani was quiet for a moment, focused on her work. Then she said, "Do you think she'd be happy we live here now? We didn't mean to steal her house." Harrison's heart broke a little. "You didn't steal anything, sweetheart. You brought her house back to life. She'd be so happy about that. She'd probably be out here gardening with you right now." "Really? Really?" She believed empty spaces were sad. She always said beauty shouldn't be wasted. You made her beautiful space not empty anymore. That's a good thing. Imani beamed at him, then returned to her weeding with renewed enthusiasm. Around 5 p.m., Harrison started dinner under Jerome's supervision. The boy had clearly been cooking for the family for months, and he guided Harrison through making spaghetti and meatballs with the confidence of someone who'd perfected the recipe. "Destiny usually does dinner," Jerome explained, "but I help when she's working. Jamal sets the table and Imani makes salad. We all have jobs." "That's good," Harrison said, rolling meatballs under Jerome's critical eye. "Teamwork is important." "We had to learn," Jerome said matter-of-factly. "After we left the group home, we only had each other. If we didn't work together, we wouldn't make it." The casual way he spoke about survival at age 12 made Harrison want to punch something. No child should have to think about making it or not making it. No child should have to be a parent to themselves and their siblings. The system had failed these kids spectacularly, and Harrison was determined to fill every gap that system had left. Destiny returned at 6 p.m., tired from her shift but smiling when she saw Harrison and the kids in the kitchen together. The scene was domestic and warm. Dinner cooking, children laughing, everything clean and organized. "You survived babysitting," she teased. "They babysat me more like," Harrison said. "Jerome's teaching me to cook. Apparently, I'm terrible at rolling meatballs." "They're lumpy," Jerome confirmed cheerfully. "But they'll taste okay." Over dinner, Harrison asked Destiny about her day at the library. She described helping patrons with computer problems, running a reading program for toddlers, shelving books in the fiction section. She loved the work, he could tell, but it paid barely above minimum wage. Not nearly enough to support a family of 4. "I talked to my lawyers today," Harrison said carefully. "The guardianship papers are being filed tomorrow. Should take about 2 weeks for the court to review and approve. But there's something else I want to discuss. The table went quiet, all eyes on him. I want to formally adopt you. All four of you. Not just be your legal guardian but actually adopt you. Make you my family legally and permanently. Destiny's fork clattered to her plate. Adopt us? Like actually adopt us? Yes. It's a longer process than guardianship, but it means no one can ever challenge my right to keep you together. You'd legally be my children. I'd be your father. The word father hung in the air, heavy with meaning. None of these children had fathers. Not really. Destiny's had never been in the picture. Jerome and Jamal's had died. Imani's had been abusive. The word represented loss and pain and empty places in their lives. But it also represented hope. A new beginning. Someone choosing them intentionally, wanting them permanently. Why would you do that? Destiny whispered. You don't even know us. I'm getting to know you, Harrison corrected. And everything I learn makes me more certain this is right. You need a family. I need this. I need you. I didn't know that 2 days ago, but I know it now. But we're not babies, Jerome pointed out. We're not cute little kids you can raise from scratch. We're almost grown. We've got issues. Trauma. We're complicated. So am I, Harrison said honestly. I'm a 52-year-old workaholic who spent 3 decades avoiding emotions and relationships. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I know I want to try. I know you four are worth trying for. Jamal spoke for the first time, his quiet voice barely audible. What if we mess up? What if we're too much trouble? Harrison looked at this gentle, artistic boy who worried about being too much trouble, and felt his heart break. Jamal, listen to me. Families don't work on a trial basis. If I adopt you, you're mine. Forever. No matter what. You could mess up every day for the rest of your life and you'd still be mine. That's what family means. Permanent. Unconditional. You understand? Jamal's eyes filled with tears. He nodded, unable to speak. Imani climbed down from her chair and walked around the table to Harrison. She crawled into his lap, something she'd been doing naturally since they met, as though 8-year-olds came pre-programmed to trust good people. Can I call you Dad? Harrison's composure shattered. He wrapped his arms around the small girl and pressed his face against her braids, breathing through the overwhelming emotion. Yes, he managed. You can call me Dad. Okay, Dad, Imani said happily as though everything was settled. Jerome and Jamal looked at each other, having one of those silent twin conversations. Then Jerome said, we'd like that. Being adopted. Being a real family. Me too, Jamal added softly. Everyone looked at Destiny. She was the oldest, the one who'd held them together this long, the one whose approval mattered most. Tears streamed down her face and when she spoke, her voice shook. I promised them, she said, gesturing at the younger children. When we left the group home, I promised I'd keep us together no matter what. I promised we'd always be a family. I've been so scared I couldn't keep that promise. So scared someone would take them from me. No one's taking them from you, Harrison said firmly. I'm just joining your family, not replacing it. You're still their sister. You're still the one who saved them. I'm just here to help. Destiny wiped her eyes. Then yes, please adopt us. Please be our family. Please give us the chance to stop surviving and start living. The formal acceptance sent a wave of relief through Harrison so strong he felt dizzy. He was really doing this. He was becoming a father to 4 children who needed him desperately. The responsibility was enormous. The potential for mistakes was huge. But the rightness of it outweighed every fear. After dinner, while the kids settled in the living room to watch a movie, Harrison stepped outside to call his lawyer. I want to move forward with adoption proceedings. All 4 children. Fast-track everything that can be fast-tracked. Mr. Pierce, adoption is complex. Background checks, home studies, court appearances. I understand. Do whatever it takes. Hire additional staff if needed. I want these children legally mine as quickly as possible. Understood. I'll begin immediately. Harrison ended the call and stood in the garden, surrounded by his mother's roses brought back to life by an orphaned child. The symbolism wasn't lost on him. These children had resurrected something he'd thought dead. His connection to home, family, purpose. In return, he'd give them safety, education, love, everything they'd been denied by a system that saw them as problems instead of potential. Mrs. Washington appeared at the fence dividing their yards. Evening, Harrison. Heard the news through the window. Sound carries when people are emotional. Harrison smiled. Eavesdropping? Caring? She corrected. Those children deserve what you're offering. And you deserve what they're giving you. What's that? A reason to live instead of just exist. I've watched you these past 2 days. You're different here. Lighter. Real. That's what children do. They force you to be present, to be authentic. You can't hide behind work and money when an 8-year-old needs help with homework. Harrison laughed. No, you really can't. Your mama would be so proud of you, Harry. So very proud. The use of his childhood nickname, the genuine warmth in her voice, brought tears to Harrison's eyes for the 100th time that day. Thank you, Mrs. Washington. That means more than you know. Back inside, Harrison joined the children for the movie. Imani immediately claimed his lap. Jerome and Jamal sat on either side of him on the couch. Destiny settled in the armchair with a blanket, her body finally relaxing now that the weight of uncertainty had lifted. The movie was some animated thing about talking animals on an adventure. Harrison barely paid attention. He was too focused on the children around him. Imani's weight against his chest, her breathing growing slower as she fought sleep. Jerome's running commentary on the physics inaccuracies in the cartoon. Jamal's quiet laughter at the funny parts. Destiny's soft smile as she watched her siblings be children for once, not survivors. This was family. Not perfect or traditional or anything Harrison had planned, but real and beautiful and worth every sacrifice he'd make to protect it. When Imani fell asleep halfway through the movie, Harrison carried her upstairs at Destiny's direction. Her room was small but cheerful, painted yellow, with drawings taped to the walls and stuffed animals arranged neatly on the bed. He tucked her in and she murmured, "Night, Dad," without waking fully. Dad. He was Dad now. The reality of it hit him as he stood in this little girl's doorway, watching her sleep. He was responsible for her happiness, her safety, her future. Along with 3 other children depending on him to not screw this up. Downstairs, he said goodnight to Jerome and Jamal, who were heading to their own bedrooms to read before sleep. They shared a room painted blue with twin beds and posters of scientists and artists on the walls. Their space was organized and clean, 2 12-year-old boys doing their best to be responsible in a world that hadn't been responsible for them. Thank you, Jerome said as Harrison started to leave, for giving us a chance. Thank you for giving me one, Harrison replied. Destiny walked him to the door. I still can't believe this is real, she admitted. I keep waiting to wake up and find it was a dream. It's real. I promise you, Destiny, this is real and permanent. You're safe now. All of you. She hugged him suddenly, fiercely, the way someone hugs a life raft in stormy seas. Thank you for being the first adult who kept their promises. Harrison hugged her back, this brave young woman who'd been forced to grow up too fast. I'll keep them all, Destiny. Every single one. Driving home that night, Harrison felt the shift completing inside him. The man who'd arrived at 4732 Oakwood Street 2 days ago no longer existed. That man had been closed off, focused solely on business, living a hollow life of accomplishments that meant nothing. The man driving away now was different. He had purpose. He had family. He had 4 children depending on him to be better than he'd been. He called Rachel from the car. I need you to find me a house. Sir? A house. 5 bedrooms at least, good neighborhood, excellent schools nearby. The penthouse won't work anymore. I need a home for a family. Rachel was quiet for a moment, then said, I'll start searching tomorrow. Any other requirements? A big yard. These kids need space to play. And somewhere for a garden. One of them loves gardening. Understood. I'll compile options for your review. After hanging up, Harrison realized he was smiling. When was the last time he'd smiled this much? When was the last time life felt full instead of empty, meaningful instead of hollow? The house on Oakwood Street would stay in the children's names, held in trust for them. But Harrison would find a real home for all of them, a place where they could grow and thrive and be a family without the weight of poverty and struggle bearing down on them. His mother had died young, worked to death by a system that didn't value her labor or her life. Harrison couldn't change that. But he could make sure 4 more children didn't meet the same fate. He could give them opportunities, education, safety, love. Everything his mother had wanted for him, he'd give to them. That was his promise to her memory. That was his commitment to these children. That was his purpose, finally, after 52 years of searching for meaning in all the wrong places. Harrison Pierce, billionaire CEO, tech mogul, business success story, was about to become something far more important and challenging than he'd ever been. Dad. The next few weeks blurred together in a mix of legal proceedings, daily visits, and gradual integration into the children's lives. Harrison found himself spending every afternoon at the house on Oakwood Street, arriving around 2 p.m. and staying until bedtime. His days developed a rhythm, mornings handling critical business from his home office, afternoons and evenings with the children. Rachel proved invaluable, managing his schedule with ruthless efficiency. She fielded calls from confused board members, rescheduled meetings, and somehow kept the company running smoothly despite Harrison's drastically reduced hours. When he thanked her one morning, she just smiled and said, "You're happier now, sir. That's worth the extra work." The legal process moved forward steadily. Harrison passed background checks easily. Home studies were conducted both at his penthouse and at the Oakwood Street house. Social workers interviewed the children separately and together, assessing their well-being and genuine desire to be adopted. Throughout it all, Harrison held his breath, terrified that some bureaucratic hurdle would tear this family apart before it fully formed. But the children were articulate and honest about their situation. Destiny explained their history without embellishment, owning the choices she'd made while making clear she'd do it all again to keep her siblings together. Jerome and Jamal spoke about feeling safe for the first time since their parents died. Imani drew pictures of her new family that included a tall man with kind eyes she labeled Dad. The social worker assigned to their case, a middle-aged woman named Patricia Monroe, was thorough but fair. After her third visit, she sat with Harrison alone in the living room while the kids played outside. "I'll be honest, Mr. Pierce," she said. "This situation is highly unusual. Wealthy single man suddenly adopting 4 foster children he met weeks ago? That raises red flags in my line of work." Harrison's stomach dropped. "I understand your concern, but—" Patricia held up a hand. "Let me finish. It raises red flags, but in this case, every flag turns green when I investigate. You're genuine. Your commitment is real. These children are thriving under your care. Destiny's stress levels have dropped dramatically now that she's not carrying the family alone. The younger ones are more relaxed, doing better in school. This is working." Relief flooded through Harrison. "So you'll approve the adoption?" "I'll recommend approval, yes. The court makes the final decision, but my recommendation carries weight. These children need what you're offering: stability, resources, permanence. And honestly, I think you need them too. You've come alive since they entered your life. It's mutual healing, which is the best kind." After Patricia left, Harrison sat on the porch swing, processing her words. Mutual healing. She was right. He'd been walking through life numb and disconnected for decades. These children had forced him to feel again, to engage again, to care about something beyond profit margins. "Dad." Imani's voice interrupted his thoughts. She'd started calling him Dad immediately and never stopped. The other children were more hesitant, still testing the waters, but Imani dove in with the fearlessness of the very young. "Yes, sweetie? Will you help me plant these bulbs? Miss Washington gave them to me. She says they'll bloom next spring." Harrison followed Imani to the garden, where she'd laid out tulip and daffodil bulbs in neat rows. For the next hour, they worked together in the dirt, Imani explaining proper planting depth and spacing with the seriousness of a master gardener. Harrison listened and followed her instructions, marveling at how much knowledge this 8-year-old had accumulated through sheer curiosity and determination. "When they bloom, I want to give some to Miss Washington," Imani said. "To thank her for helping us." "That's very thoughtful. Destiny says we should always pay back kindness with kindness. That's how good stuff spreads." Such simple wisdom from a child who'd experienced more hardship than most adults. Harrison made a mental note to thank Destiny for teaching her siblings such values despite everything working against them. Jerome appeared at the garden gate. "Dad? Can you help me with something?" "Dad." The word still caught Harrison off guard when Jerome or Jamal used it, though they were doing so more frequently. The first time Jerome had said it, about a week into their new arrangement, he turned bright red and apologized. Harrison had assured him it was not only okay but welcome. Now Jerome used it naturally, as though they'd been father and son for years instead of weeks. "Of course. What do you need?" Jerome led him to the garage, which had been converted into a makeshift workshop. The science project had evolved into something more complex. A full solar panel system Jerome hoped to use to power lights in the house. The ambition was remarkable, as was the ingenuity in his design. "I need help wiring this correctly," Jerome explained, showing Harrison a tangle of wires and connections. "I understand the theory, but the practical application is tricky." Harrison studied the setup, pulling from engineering knowledge he'd nearly forgotten from his own college days. Together they worked through the wiring problem, Jerome absorbing every explanation like a sponge. The boy had a natural gift for understanding complex systems, for seeing how pieces fit together to create functional wholes. "Have you thought about where you want to go to college?" Harrison asked as they worked. Jerome's hands stilled. "I wasn't sure college was possible. I mean, I hoped, but It's possible, Harrison said firmly. Not just possible, guaranteed. You're brilliant, Jerome. You could study at any engineering program in the country. MIT, Stanford, anywhere you want. Really? The hope in Jerome's voice was painful to hear. Really? When the time comes, we'll visit campuses, figure out what's the best fit. You're going to have options, Jerome. Real options. The boy wiped his eyes quickly, pretending dust had gotten in them. Harrison pretended not to notice, giving Jerome the dignity of private emotion while making his support clear. Later, while helping Jamal frame some of his artwork for the walls, Harrison learned more about the quiet twins' artistic vision. Jamal's paintings were remarkable, showing a sophisticated understanding of color and composition that exceeded his age. One painting in particular struck Harrison, a portrait of Destiny standing in the garden, surrounded by roses, light breaking through storm clouds overhead. "This is beautiful," Harrison said honestly. "You captured her perfectly. The strength, the weariness, the hope." Jamal smiled shyly. "She's my hero. She saved us when no one else would. I wanted to show her the way I see her." "Have you given this to her?" "Not yet. I wanted to finish the frame first." "She's going to cry when she sees it." "Good tears." "I hope so. She deserves good tears for once." The simple statement revealed so much about what these children had witnessed. Destiny's tears had been from fear and frustration and exhaustion for too long. Only recently had they turned to tears of relief and joy. Jamal recognized that shift and wanted to honor it. "You have real talent, Jamal," Harrison said. "Not just for a 12-year-old. Real, professional-level talent. Have you thought about art school?" Jamal's expression was wary, as though expecting the dream to be snatched away. "I've thought about it. But art school is expensive. And Destiny always says practical careers are more important than dreams." "Dreams are practical," Harrison countered. "Especially when you have the talent to achieve them. Yes, art school is expensive, but I can afford it. If art is what you want, if it's what makes your soul come alive, then that's what you should pursue. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough?" Harrison put down the frame and turned to face Jamal directly. "What if you succeed? What if you're better than good enough? What if you become the artist you're meant to be? Fear of failure shouldn't stop you from trying, Jamal. My mother used to say the only real failure is not trying at all." Jamal considered this, then nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll keep painting. I'll get better. And maybe when I'm older, I'll go to art school." "That's the spirit." That evening, Harrison stayed for dinner again. It was becoming routine. He'd arrive in the afternoon, help with homework and projects, assist with meal preparation, eat together as a family, then stay through bedtime routines. He was learning each child's quirks and needs. Imani needed extra hugs and reassurance. Jerome needed intellectual challenge and encouragement. Jamal needed quiet support and validation of his artistic vision. Destiny needed relief from responsibility and permission to be 17 instead of a parent. Providing those needs felt natural in a way Harrison never expected. He'd assumed parenthood would be awkward and difficult, that he'd constantly second-guess himself. Instead, he found his instincts were generally good. When he wasn't sure what to do, he asked the children directly. They appreciated his honesty about being new to fatherhood, and they helped guide him through the learning curve. During dinner that night, Destiny made an announcement. "I registered for community college. Classes start in January. I'm going to study social work." The children erupted in congratulations, and Harrison raised his water glass in a toast. "That's wonderful, Destiny. You're going to help so many kids." "I hope so. Kids like us who fall through the cracks. I want to be the adult who shows up for them." "You already are that adult," Harrison pointed out. "You've been that for these 3. Now I want to do it officially. With training and credentials and the power to actually change things." After dinner, while the younger kids cleared the table, Harrison helped Destiny review the course catalog for spring semester. She'd chosen classes carefully, balancing required courses with her work schedule and family responsibilities. Even with Harrison's financial support, she insisted on working part-time at the library. The job meant something to her beyond money: independence, purpose, connection to the community. "You don't have to work," Harrison reminded her gently. "I can cover everything you need." "I know, but I want to work. Mrs. Chin depends on me. And I like having something that's mine, you know? School will be yours helping me. The house is yours helping us. But the library is mine because I earned it." Harrison understood. Destiny had spent 17 years fighting for agency in a system that denied her control over her own life. Work represented autonomy, proof that she was capable and valued beyond her role as a foster child or adopted daughter. He wouldn't take that from her by insisting she quit. Then we'll figure out a schedule that works, he said. School, work, family. All of it is manageable. She smiled at him, the real smile he was seeing more frequently now. Thank you for not pushing. For letting me keep parts of myself. You're not losing yourself, Destiny. You're growing into more of yourself. There's room for all of it, student, worker, sister, daughter. You don't have to choose. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Harrison sat in the living room reviewing the house listings Rachel had sent over. She'd found several options that met his criteria. Good neighborhoods, excellent schools, large yards, room for a family to grow. One house in particular caught his attention. A 6-bedroom colonial in a suburb known for its strong schools and diverse community. The yard was enormous, plenty of space for Imani's garden. The neighborhood had other families with children. The schools had strong arts and STEM programs. But looking at the listing made Harrison hesitate. Yes, the house was better than the Oakwood Street property in every practical way. But this house, the one he sat in now, held something the suburban colonial never would. History, meaning, roots. His mother had loved this house. The children had transformed it with their own hands. Moving felt wrong, like abandoning something sacred. He called Rachel. About the house search. Did you see the colonial? It's perfect for your needs. I see it. But I don't think we're moving. Sir? This house, the one I grew up in, the one the kids renovated. I think this is home. The real home. I'm going to invest in renovating it properly instead of moving. Rachel was quiet for a moment. That's a significant decision. The neighborhood isn't as affluent. It's real. The people here are real. Mrs. Washington next door is more valuable than a dozen wealthy neighbors who judge us for being different. This is where we belong. Then I'll cancel the house search and find contractors for renovation instead. After the call, Harrison walked through the house slowly, seeing it with fresh eyes. Yes, the kitchen was small. The bathrooms needed updating. The house could use insulation and new windows. But the bones were solid. The soul was intact. With proper investment, this house could be beautiful and functional, a true family home. He imagined the changes. Expanding the kitchen for family meals, adding a bathroom so the kids didn't have to share one, finishing the basement as a teen space for Destiny, updating bedrooms with space for study and growth. The house could accommodate their needs while retaining its character and history. More importantly, staying meant staying connected to the community that had quietly supported the children during their months alone. Mrs. Washington and her wisdom. Mr. Kim at the corner store who'd extended credit when Destiny was short on cash. The neighbors who'd donated seeds and supplies for the garden. These people had shown kindness when the children needed it most. Leaving would feel like abandoning them. That night, Harrison made the decision. They'd stay in the house on Oakwood Street. He'd renovate it extensively, making it comfortable and beautiful, but they'd keep their roots in this neighborhood, in this community, in this place that had sheltered all of them when they needed shelter most. Harrison spent Saturday morning meeting with contractors, walking them through the house on Oakwood Street and explaining his vision. He wanted to preserve the character while modernizing the function. Original woodwork refinished, not replaced. Windows updated for efficiency but matching the historic style. Kitchen expanded but keeping the cozy feel. Each contractor received the same instruction. This was a beloved home, not just a construction project. Treat it with respect. The children watched the parade of contractors with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Destiny, especially, seemed worried about the changes disrupting their hard-won stability. We're not changing everything, Harrison assured her during a quiet moment on the porch. We're just making it better. You'll still have your home, just with better heat and a kitchen big enough for all of us to cook together. I trust you, Destiny said, though her voice held residual uncertainty. It's just hard to believe good things can stay good, you know? I do know. But sometimes they do. Sometimes good things get better. That afternoon, Harrison proposed they host a neighborhood gathering. I want to thank everyone who helped you guys while you were on your own. And I want to introduce myself properly as part of this community. The children embraced the idea with enthusiasm. Imani immediately started planning what flowers to pick for decorations. Jerome suggested they could demonstrate his solar panel project. Jamal offered to create a welcome sign. Destiny started a list of neighbors to invite. Over the next week, preparations consumed the household in the best possible way. Harrison ordered supplies for a cookout. Burgers, hot dogs, chicken, sides, desserts. The children made invitations by hand, Jamal decorating each one with small paintings of roses. They delivered them door to door, inviting everyone on the block to come celebrate on Saturday afternoon. The response was overwhelming. Neighbors who'd quietly helped the children for months expressed excitement about meeting Harrison formally. Mrs. Washington insisted on making her famous potato salad. Mr. Kim promised to bring Korean barbecue to share. Other neighbors offered dishes, decorations, help with setup. "This is what community looks like," Harrison told the children as they prepared the yard on Friday evening. "People caring about each other, supporting each other. This is what my mother loved about this neighborhood." Saturday arrived bright and clear. By noon, the yard was transformed. Tables borrowed from the community center, chairs arranged in clusters, Imani's flowers everywhere, Jerome's solar panel project set up with informational posters he'd created. The house sparkled from top to bottom, the children having cleaned obsessively to show it at its best. Neighbors began arriving around 2 p.m., bringing food and smiles and genuine warmth. Harrison stood with the children, greeting each guest, learning names and stories. Mrs. Washington arrived early, immediately taking charge of the food setup with the authority of someone who'd organized 1,000 church potlucks. Mr. Kim brought his whole family, who helped set up a small grill for the Korean barbecue he'd promised. The gathering grew beyond expectations. 50, 60, maybe 70 people filled the yard and spilled onto the sidewalk. Children played together while adults talked and laughed. Music played from a borrowed speaker. The smell of grilling meat mixed with Imani's roses, creating an atmosphere of celebration and community. Harrison found himself in conversation after conversation with neighbors who shared stories about the children. The elderly woman from 3 doors down described how Jamal had shoveled her walk last winter without being asked. The young couple across the street told how Imani had brought them roses when their baby was born. The teenager next door explained how Jerome had helped him with math homework, patiently tutoring him through concepts he'd struggled to understand. These children had been good neighbors, contributing to the community even while struggling to survive. They'd given what little they had: time, effort, kindness. The neighborhood had noticed and reciprocated quietly, never reporting their situation to authorities because everyone understood that sometimes children are safer in unconventional situations than in the system designed to protect them. A local journalist appeared around 4 p.m., invited by someone who thought the story deserved attention. Harrison spoke with her carefully, emphasizing the children's resilience and the community's support rather than his own role. When she asked for photos, he deferred to Destiny, letting her decide how public their story should become. Destiny thought for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe our story helps other kids. Maybe it shows that there are different kinds of families, different paths to safety. If sharing helps someone else, then okay." The photos taken that day would appear in the local paper the following week. Children laughing in their garden, neighbors embracing, Harrison helping Imani serve lemonade, Destiny standing proud in front of the house she'd saved. The accompanying article told their story with sensitivity and respect, highlighting themes of resilience, community, and unconventional family bonds. As evening fell and the party continued under strung lights Jerome and Harrison had hung earlier, Mrs. Washington asked Harrison to join her on the porch swing. They sat together, watching the celebration, each holding a plate of food from a dozen different contributions. "You've done well by them," Mrs. Washington said. "And they've done well by you. They've changed my life completely. I didn't know it was missing anything until I met them. That's how family works. You don't know the empty spaces exist until someone fills them." She ate a forkful of potato salad, then continued, "Your mama would be so pleased. Not just that you're helping these babies, but that you came home. Really came home, not just to visit. This neighborhood, this house, these people. They're your roots, Harry. You're remembering that." "I tried to forget," Harrison admitted. "For 30 years I tried to be someone different from the poor kid who grew up here. But Destiny was right when she said you can't run from your past. You have to make peace with it." "And have you? Made peace?" Harrison thought about his mother, about the struggles and sacrifices, about the love that had shaped him despite the poverty that had constrained them. "I'm getting there. These kids are helping me see that my past isn't something to escape. It's something that made me who I am. The good parts of who I am anyway." During the party, Harrison had a meaningful conversation with Mrs. Chen, the librarian who'd employed Destiny without asking uncomfortable questions. She was a petite Chinese-American woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes and a warm smile. "You're doing a good thing," she told Harrison as they stood near the food table. "Destiny is special. Intelligent, responsible, caring beyond her years. She's going to do important work in the world. She wants to be a social worker," Harrison said. "Help other foster kids. She'll be excellent at it. She understands their pain from the inside. That's powerful when channeled into advocacy. Mrs. Chen paused, then added, I'm glad she finally has support. She's been carrying too much alone for too long. Even strong people need help. I wish someone had helped sooner, Harrison said, frustration leaking into his voice. How does a system let children fall through the cracks this badly? The system is broken, Mrs. Chen said bluntly. Underfunded, understaffed, overwhelmed. Workers with impossible caseloads trying to help too many children with too few resources. The system needs major reform, but that requires political will and funding that doesn't exist. Until then, individual acts of kindness are what save kids. Like yours. Like mine in my small way. Your small way was a job and dignity when she needed both desperately. That's not small. Mrs. Chen smiled. Perhaps not. We all do what we can with what we have. Harrison made a mental note to donate to local foster care organizations. If the system was failing children this thoroughly, then outside support was critical. He had resources to spare. Why not use them where they'd make real difference? Jerome demonstrated his solar panel project to a crowd of impressed neighbors, explaining the science with passionate detail. Several adults asked questions and Jerome answered each one with growing confidence. Harrison watched from the edge of the group, proud beyond words of this 12-year-old who taught himself advanced concepts from library books and YouTube videos. A middle-aged black man in the crowd introduced himself to Harrison afterward. I'm Thomas Wright. I teach engineering at the community college. That kid is exceptional. If he keeps developing his skills, he could do serious work in renewable energy someday. He wants to be an engineer, Harrison said. I'm making sure he gets every opportunity. Good. We need more young minds like his tackling climate challenges. When he's ready for college, have him reach out to me. I know programs that would fight over a student with his talent and drive. Jerome glowed under the professor's praise, and Harrison made sure to get Thomas Wright's contact information for the future. Jamal's welcome sign hung near the front gate, drew attention throughout the party. People stopped to admire the intricate painting of the house surrounded by blooming roses. Several neighbors asked if prints would be available. Jamal blushed at the attention but promised to look into making prints if people were genuinely interested. An art teacher from the local high school sought out Jamal specifically. I've heard about your talent from some of my students who live on this block. Would you be interested in attending some advanced workshops at the school? They're free, open to middle schoolers who show promise. We cover advanced techniques, art history, portfolio development. Jamal looked at Harrison, silently asking permission. Harrison nodded encouragingly. That sounds wonderful. Jamal would love to participate. The offer of formal art instruction thrilled Jamal in a way that made Harrison's heart ache. These children had been starved for opportunity, for recognition of their gifts, for adults who saw their potential rather than their circumstances. Every offer of help, every recognition of talent, was a revelation to them. As the party wound down around 8 p.m., neighbors helped clean up with the same cheerful efficiency they'd brought to the celebration. Within an hour, the yard was restored to order, though the joy of the gathering lingered in the air. The children were exhausted but happy, full of good food and positive attention. Imani had been hugged by at least 40 people and had collected promises to help with her garden from a dozen experienced growers. Jerome had 3 new mentors interested in his science projects. Jamal had been invited to the art workshops and asked about prints of his work. Destiny had been told by at least 20 people how proud they were of her, how remarkable she was, how much they admired her strength. That night, after the children were in bed, Harrison sat alone in the living room, processing the day. The party had been more than just a celebration. It had been a statement. This family belongs here. These children are valued. This community claims them as its own. For years, these kids had existed in shadows, hiding their situation, afraid of discovery. Now they stood in full light, celebrated and supported, part of a neighborhood that had always known they were there but had protected their secret until it was safe to reveal. Harrison understood in that moment why staying in this house, this neighborhood, mattered so much. Wealthy suburbs might have better schools and bigger houses, but they wouldn't have Mrs. Washington's wisdom or Mr. Kim's generosity or Mrs. Chen's quiet support. They wouldn't have neighbors who'd proven their loyalty by protecting children they barely knew. Community wasn't something you could buy, no matter how much money you had. Community was built through shared experience, mutual support and consistent presence. This neighborhood was community in its purest form. Harrison's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Saw the party photos on social media. Looks like you found your place. He smiled and replied, I did. Finally. Another text came through, this one from Thomas Wright, the engineering professor. Tell Jerome to call me anytime he wants to talk about science projects or college. Kid's got a brilliant future. Harrison saved the number and made a note to tell Jerome in the morning. The boy deserved to know that his talent was recognized by professionals, not just by a proud guardian. Before heading home to his penthouse, Harrison stood in the doorway of each child's room, watching them sleep. Imani curled around a stuffed rabbit, dirt still under her fingernails from planting. Jerome sprawled across his bed, science magazine open on his chest. Jamal slept with his sketchbook on the nightstand, always within reach. Destiny's room was last and she was still awake, reading by lamplight. Great party, she said softly when she saw him. You guys did most of the work. We did it together. That's better. She set down her book. Can I ask you something? Always. Why did you really come back? To this house, I mean. You said to demolish it, but I don't think that's the whole truth. I think you came back for a reason you didn't understand yet. Harrison considered lying, then decided Destiny deserved honesty. I came back because I was empty. Successful and rich and completely hollow inside. I thought destroying the house would finally let me move on from my past. Instead, I found you and you showed me that the past wasn't something to destroy. It was something to build on, to honor, to continue. So we saved you too, Destiny said with a small smile. Not just the other way around. You absolutely saved me. Every single day you saved me from being the person I was turning into. Cold, disconnected, focused on money instead of meaning. You remind me what matters. Love matters, Destiny said simply. Family matters. Being there for each other matters. Everything else is just details. You're wise beyond your years. I had to grow up fast. But now maybe I can grow up normally. With you as my dad, school to focus on, these kids to love instead of just survive with. That's a gift you gave me, the chance to be 17 instead of a parent. You'll always be their big sister, Harrison said. That doesn't change. But yes, you get to be a kid now too. Or a teenager, I guess. Whatever 17 is. She laughed. 17 is complicated. But I think it'll be easier with you here. Harrison kissed her forehead, something he'd started doing naturally over the past weeks. Good night, Destiny. Sleep well. Good night, Dad. The word still caught him off guard, still made his chest tight with emotion. But it felt right. More right than anything in his life had felt before these children came into it. Driving home that night, Harrison thought about the next steps. Legal adoption proceedings were moving forward. The house renovation would begin in a month. School was going well for all the children. Destiny's college enrollment was set for January. Everything was falling into place with remarkable smoothness. But Harrison knew that life wasn't always smooth. Challenges would come. Trauma from the children's past would resurface in unexpected ways. Teenagers would push boundaries and test limits. The transition from independence to interdependence would create friction points. He was prepared for that. Or as prepared as anyone could be for the beautiful mess of family life. What mattered was showing up consistently, loving unconditionally, and being present for whatever came. That's what his mother had done for him. That's what he'd do for these four. The house on Oakwood Street, once a symbol of everything Harrison wanted to escape, had become the center of everything that mattered. Not because the structure itself was special, but because of the people inside it, the community surrounding it, and the love being built within its walls. Harrison pulled into his penthouse parking garage and sat in the car for a moment, looking up at his building. Soon he'd sell this place. Soon he'd move fully into the house with the children, making it official and permanent. The penthouse had been a symbol of his success, but it had never been home. Home was blue shutters and white paint and roses climbing the fence. Home was mismatched furniture and children's artwork on the walls. Home was a 17-year-old who'd saved her siblings, 12-year-old twins who'd survived loss together, and an 8-year-old who could make anything grow. Home was family. Finally, after 52 years, Harrison understood what that meant. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Harrison was reviewing quarterly reports at his penthouse. His phone lit up with Destiny's number, and his stomach immediately clenched. She only called during school hours if something was wrong. Destiny? What's happened? Her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Social services is here. At the house. A caseworker named Miss Patterson. She said someone reported our situation and she's here to investigate. She's asking a lot of questions. She's looking at the kids' rooms. Dad, I'm scared. What if she tries to separate us? Harrison was already grabbing his keys and heading for the door. I'm on my way. 20 minutes. Don't say anything about living alone before I arrived. Just tell her I'm your legal guardian and I'm coming immediately. Can you do that? Yes. Hurry please. The drive to Oakwood Street took 15 minutes of Harrison breaking speed limits and running yellow lights. His mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Someone had reported them. Oh, why now when everything was finally stable? What if the court decided his guardianship wasn't sufficient? What if they removed the children while adoption proceedings were still pending? He pulled up to find an official car in the driveway, a woman in business casual standing on the porch with a clipboard. Through the window, he could see Destiny sitting stiffly on the couch, Jerome and Jamal flanking her protectively. Imani was nowhere visible, probably hiding upstairs. Harrison forced himself to walk calmly to the door, to not show the panic coursing through him. The woman turned as he approached, her expression professionally neutral. Mr. Pierce? I'm Patricia Monroe from Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you about these children. Of course. Let's talk. Harrison unlocked the door and gestured her inside. Destiny's eyes met his, wide with fear, but he gave her what he hoped was a reassuring nod. Inside, Miss Patterson settled into the armchair while Harrison sat with the children on the couch, a united front. The social worker consulted her notes, then looked up with sharp, assessing eyes. I received a report that 4 minor children have been living in this property without proper adult supervision or legal guardianship. The report was anonymous, but detailed enough to warrant investigation. Can you explain the situation? Harrison chose his words carefully. These children were living here when I rediscovered my childhood property several weeks ago. I immediately began guardianship proceedings to formalize their care. The legal process is well underway. Several weeks ago. And before that. Miss Patterson's tone wasn't accusatory, but it demanded truth. Destiny spoke up, her voice steadier now that Harrison was present. Before that we were on our own. I'm 17, aged out of foster care. I brought my siblings with me because the system wanted to separate us. We found this abandoned house and made it livable. We weren't hurting anyone. We just wanted to stay together. Miss Patterson made notes, her pen moving quickly across the page. And Mr. Pierce found you living here without permission in a property he owned, and decided to help rather than report you? I decided to help because it was the right thing to do, Harrison said firmly. These children transformed my abandoned house into a home. They demonstrated remarkable resilience and capability. Reporting them would have torn apart a functioning family for no good reason. No good reason except that it's the law, Miss Patterson pointed out mildly. Minors can't live alone even if one is technically aged out of the system. The younger 3 are still wards of the state unless properly placed or adopted. Harrison's jaw tightened. Which is why I immediately initiated legal guardianship and adoption proceedings. I have lawyers working on it. Everything is being done correctly now. Now yes. But for months before you appeared, these children were vulnerable and at risk. What if something had happened to them? What if Destiny had been unable to care for her siblings? What if there had been a fire, an injury, an emergency? But there wasn't, Destiny said, her voice rising. We were careful. We were safe. We took care of each other. We went to school and worked and did everything right. Why is that a problem? Because children shouldn't have to be that careful or that responsible, Miss Patterson said, not unkindly. You're 17, Destiny. You should be worrying about homework and college, not keeping a roof over 3 children's heads. The situation wasn't safe, even if nothing bad happened. You understand that, don't you? Tears welled in Destiny. Sighs. I understand the system would rather split us up than trust me to take care of them. I understand that keeping us together was illegal even though it was the most right thing I've ever done. I understand that rules matter more than results. Miss Patterson sighed, and for the first time her professional mask slipped to show genuine compassion. I'm not the enemy, Destiny. I'm trying to ensure these children's safety and well-being. That's my job. Sometimes the system fails, I know that better than anyone. But I still have to follow protocol. What does protocol require? Harrison asked, dreading the answer. A thorough investigation. Interviews with each child separately. Inspection of living conditions. Review of school records and medical histories. Verification that Mr. Pierce's guardianship application is legitimate and progressing. And honestly, an assessment of whether this arrangement is in the children's best interests. Of course it's in our best interests, Jerome burst out. We're together. We're safe. We're happy. What else matters? Legality matters, Miss Patterson said. Stability matters. Ensuring you're not at risk matters. I'm not saying you'll be removed. I'm saying I need to do my due diligence before I can sign off on this situation continuing. Over the next 2 hours, Ms. Patterson conducted her investigation thoroughly. She interviewed each child separately, asking about their living conditions, relationship with Harrison, feelings of safety, experiences with school and healthcare. She inspected every room, noting the cleanliness, the supplies, the evidence of care and attention. She reviewed Harrison's guardianship paperwork, his financial statements, his background check results. Harrison waited in the kitchen with Destiny, both of them tense and silent. The younger children were upstairs being interviewed one by one. Harrison could hear Imani's voice occasionally, animated as she described her garden to the social worker. "This is my fault," Destiny said suddenly. "If I just kept us hidden better." "Stop," Harrison interrupted. "This isn't your fault. Someone reported you, probably with good intentions. And honestly, bringing everything into the open is better than hiding. We get legal protection this way. Official recognition. No more looking over your shoulders. What if she decides to take them away? She won't. Our situation is unconventional, but it's working. Miss Patterson can see that. She's thorough, not cruel. Trust the process, Destiny." When Miss Patterson finally finished her investigation, she gathered everyone in the living room. Her expression was impossible to read, and Harrison felt his heart pounding as he waited for her assessment. "I'll be honest with all of you," Miss Patterson began. "This situation is highly irregular. By the book, these children should have been reported to CPS months ago when they first started living here alone. The fact that they survived and even thrived doesn't excuse the risk they were exposed to." Destiny's hand found Harrison's, squeezing tightly. "However," Miss Patterson continued, "I'm also a realist. The foster system is overwhelmed and underfunded. Keeping siblings together is almost impossible, especially when one is a teenager and the others are preteens. If I had found you months ago, you likely would have been separated across multiple placements. That would have caused trauma that you're clearly not experiencing now." She consulted her notes again. "Mr. Pierce's intervention has stabilized your situation. You're well cared for, attending school regularly and clearly bonded with him. The guardianship paperwork is solid and moving through the system appropriately. From a practical standpoint, disrupting this arrangement would cause more harm than good." Relief flooded through Harrison, but he didn't let himself celebrate yet. There was a but coming, he could feel it. "But," Miss Patterson said, confirming his intuition, "I can't just rubber stamp this and walk away. I need certain conditions met before I close this case." "What conditions?" Harrison asked. "First, formal guardianship must be completed within 60 days. I'm expediting my recommendation through the system, but the court needs to finalize it quickly. Second, all children need comprehensive medical exams and any necessary treatment. Third, Destiny needs to be enrolled in therapy. She's been carrying adult responsibilities without adult support for too long. She needs professional help processing that. Fourth, family therapy for all of you together, to help navigate this new family dynamic. Finally, I'll be conducting follow-up visits monthly for the next 6 months to ensure stability continues." The conditions were reasonable, Harrison realized with relief. Demanding but reasonable. "We can do all of that," he said. "Gladly." "Good. I'll be in touch with specific appointments and requirements. In the meantime, this arrangement can continue as is." Miss Patterson stood, gathering her materials. At the door she turned back. "For what it's worth, I think you kids lucked out. Mr. Pierce could have had you removed immediately when he found you. Instead he stepped up. That's rare. Don't take it for granted." "We don't," Imani said solemnly. "We're very grateful." After Miss Patterson left, the house erupted in relieved chatter. The children had been holding their breath collectively, and now they could finally exhale. Harrison made hot chocolate while they processed what had happened, needing to do something with his hands while his adrenaline slowly subsided. "That was terrifying," Jamal said, wrapping both hands around his mug. "I thought for sure she'd take us away." "She came close to suggesting it," Harrison admitted. "But she's pragmatic. She sees that you're thriving here. Removing you would be counterproductive." "Who do you think reported us?" Jerome asked. "Does it matter?" Destiny countered. "Maybe they thought they were helping. Or maybe they were just nosy. Either way, Miss Patterson is right. Bringing everything into the light is better than hiding." That evening, Harrison called his lawyer to explain the situation and the new timeline. 60 days to finalize guardianship wasn't much time, but it was doable if they prioritized it. "I'll file expedited motions with the court," the lawyer promised. "Given CPS involvement and their recommendation, The judge should move this through quickly. We'll get it done. Harrison also scheduled the required appointments. Medical exams for all 4 children the following week, a family therapist starting in 2 weeks, and an individual therapist for Destiny starting immediately. The costs were insignificant compared to the peace of mind these services would provide. That night, lying in bed in his penthouse, Harrison replayed the day in his mind. The panic of Destiny's call. The fear that he'd lose them before the adoption was finalized. The relief when Miss Patterson approved their continuation as a family. It had been too close. Too close to losing everything that mattered. The experience crystallized something Harrison had been feeling but hadn't articulated. These children weren't a charity project or a good deed. They were his family. Losing them would devastate him as much as it would devastate them. He needed the adoption finalized. He needed the legal protections in place. He needed to ensure that no one could ever separate this family once it was officially formed. The next morning, Harrison arrived at the house early to drive the children to school. It was something he'd started doing regularly, enjoying the morning chaos of getting 4 kids ready and out the door. Today, Destiny pulled him aside before the others came downstairs. "Thank you," she said simply. "For yesterday. For staying calm when I was panicking. For having answers when I didn't know what to do. For being the parent I needed." "That's what parents do," Harrison said. "They show up. They stay calm in crises. They protect their kids. I'm just doing what comes naturally now. It wasn't natural for you a month ago. You've changed so much. You changed me. All of you. You showed me what matters and what's worth fighting for." He hugged her, this brave young woman who'd been forced to grow up too fast. "We're going to get through this, Destiny. The adoption will go through. Miss Patterson will close the case. We'll be a legal, official, permanent family. I promise you that." "I believe you," Destiny said, and the trust in her voice humbled Harrison. Over the following weeks, they worked through Miss Patterson's requirements methodically. Medical exams revealed that all the children were generally healthy, though Imani needed glasses and Jerome required dental work. Harrison arranged everything immediately, relieved that nothing more serious had been uncovered. Therapy sessions began. Destiny resisted at first, insisting she didn't need help, that she'd handled everything fine on her own. But her therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Rivera, gently pushed past her defenses. After the 3rd session, Destiny came home with red eyes and told Harrison quietly, "I didn't realize how scared I've been. All the time. Even now, when things are good, I'm scared it'll fall apart." "That's normal given what you've experienced," Harrison assured her. "But therapy will help. You don't have to carry that fear alone anymore." Family therapy was awkward initially. 5 people who'd known each other for such a short time, trying to build trust and communication patterns, inevitably hit rough spots. Jerome admitted he sometimes resented Harrison's authority, even though he was grateful for his help. Jamal revealed that he worried about being a burden, that his artistic interests seemed frivolous compared to Jerome's practical science pursuits. Imani cried during one session, admitting she was scared Harrison would leave like everyone else had left. The therapist, Dr. Chin, no relation to the librarian Mrs. Chin, helped them work through each issue with patience and skill. He taught them communication techniques, conflict resolution strategies, and ways to express needs and boundaries clearly. "Family isn't automatic just because you live together," Dr. Chin explained during one session. "Family is built through consistent effort, honest communication, and mutual respect. You're doing the hard work now to build a strong foundation." Miss Patterson's monthly visits became less stressful as she documented the family's progress. She saw children thriving in school, attending therapy consistently, bonding with their guardian. She saw Harrison adapting to parenthood with determination and genuine care. By the 3rd visit, she smiled genuinely and said, "You're doing great. All of you. Keep it up." The guardianship hearing was scheduled for late October, nearly 2 months after Miss Patterson's initial visit. Harrison dressed carefully that morning, wanting to present himself as the responsible, capable guardian he'd become. The children wore their best clothes, Jerome and Jamal in button-down shirts Destiny had ironed carefully, Imani in a dress with flowers, Destiny herself in professional slacks and a blue blouse. At the courthouse, their lawyer met them with confident assurance. Miss Patterson filed a glowing recommendation. "The judge has no reason to deny this. It's essentially a formality at this point." Still, Harrison's heart raced as they entered the courtroom. The judge, a middle-aged black woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed their file carefully before speaking. "This is an unusual case," Judge Williams began. Mr. Pierce, you discovered these children living in your property without permission, and rather than reporting them to authorities immediately, you chose to help them. That decision was technically improper, but I understand your reasoning. Harrison stood, his lawyer beside him. Your Honor, I saw children who'd kept themselves safe and together against overwhelming odds. Reporting them would have separated them for no good reason. Helping them was the humane choice. I agree, the judge said. Which is why I'm approving this guardianship petition. Mr. Pierce, you are hereby granted legal guardianship of Destiny Carter, Jerome Johnson, Jamal Johnson, and Imani Thompson. Congratulations. The gavel came down and Harrison felt tears spring to his eyes. Legal guardianship. Official protection. One step closer to permanent adoption. The children erupted in quiet cheers, mindful of courtroom decorum but unable to contain their joy entirely. Outside the courthouse, Harrison hugged each child tightly. We did it. You're mine now. Legally mine. No one can separate us. When does adoption happen? Imani asked, ever focused on the ultimate goal. That process takes longer, probably 6 more months. But guardianship is almost as protective. We're safe now, sweetheart. That evening, they celebrated at home with a special dinner Harrison had arranged to be delivered from an upscale restaurant. As they ate together in the dining room, laughing and teasing each other, Harrison felt profound contentment. This was family. Messy and complicated and built from broken pieces, but real and solid and his. The challenges weren't over. Trauma would resurface. Adolescence would bring new complications. The adoption process would test their patience. But they'd face the first major challenge together and emerge stronger. Whatever came next, they'd handle it as a family. 2 weeks after the guardianship hearing, Harrison proposed hosting another neighborhood gathering. A celebration party, he explained to the children over breakfast. To thank everyone for their support during the CPS investigation and to celebrate becoming an official family. The children embraced the idea enthusiastically, especially Imani, who immediately started planning her garden's presentation. Fall had arrived, and while many summer flowers had faded, her mums bloomed in brilliant yellows, oranges, and reds. She'd also planted ornamental kale and late-season vegetables that provided color and visual interest. I want to give tours, Imani announced. Show people how to prepare gardens for winter and what to plant for spring bulbs. You'll be a wonderful tour guide, Harrison assured her. Maybe we can make educational signs for each section of the garden. Jerome suggested demonstrating his solar panel system, which he'd expanded significantly with Harrison's support. The setup now powered several outdoor lights and could charge multiple devices simultaneously. I want to show people that renewable energy isn't just for big companies. Regular people can use it too. Jamal offered to create a gallery of his artwork in the garage turn studio. Harrison had invested in proper lighting and display materials, transforming the space into a functional artist's workspace. Jamal's recent paintings explored themes of family, belonging, and transformation. Several depicted the house itself in different seasons, showing its evolution from abandoned structure to vibrant home. Destiny took charge of organizing the event itself, creating invitation lists, coordinating food contributions, and managing logistics. Harrison watched her work with admiration. Despite therapy revealing layers of trauma and fear, she functioned with remarkable capability when given responsibilities she could control. The party was scheduled for a Saturday in mid-November. Harrison arranged for heating lamps to be set up in the yard, anticipating cooler temperatures. He ordered tables and chairs, hired a small local band to provide music, and coordinated with neighbors about food contributions. Mrs. Washington again volunteered her potato salad, and Mr. Kim promised to bring Korean barbecue. The week before the party, Harrison received unexpected news. The local newspaper wanted to do a follow-up story on their family, highlighting their journey from the initial neighborhood gathering to official guardianship. The reporter, a young woman named Amanda Torres, had been touched by their story and wanted to share the update. Harrison discussed it with the children at dinner. What do you think? It's more public attention, but it might inspire other people to help foster children. Your call. Destiny considered carefully. Will it help other kids? Like really help, not just make people feel good for a minute? It might, Harrison said honestly. Stories like yours show that there are different paths to family. That sometimes the system fails and individuals have to step up. That could inspire others to become foster or adoptive parents. Then let's do it, Destiny decided. If our story helps even one other kid find a family, it's worth it. The interview took place in the garden, with Amanda Torres asking thoughtful questions about their journey. She interviewed each child individually, then Harrison, then captured them together as a family. The photographer took pictures of Imani explaining her garden, Jerome demonstrating his solar panels, Jamal painting in his studio, and Destiny studying at the kitchen table. The final shot showed all 5 of them on the porch swing, laughing at something Imani had said. The article would run the day before the party, Amanda promised. I think it'll be a beautiful piece. Your family represents hope and resilience. That's a message people need right now. Party day arrived with perfect autumn weather. Crisp and clear, temperatures in the low 60s, brilliant blue sky overhead. The children were up early, helping Harrison set up tables, arrange chairs, hang decorations Jamal had created. By 1 p.m., everything was ready. The yard looked festive and welcoming, the house sparkled from a thorough cleaning, and food started arriving as neighbors came early to help set up. The newspaper article had generated significant interest. Several people mentioned reading it as they arrived, expressing admiration for the family's journey. A few even brought gifts: books for the children, donations to Harrison's newly established foster care fund, homemade treats and crafts. Mrs. Washington arrived with not just potato salad but also 3 pies she'd stayed up late baking. You've made me proud, Harry, she said, hugging him tightly. Your mama is smiling down on you today. Mr. Kim brought his extended family and set up an elaborate Korean barbecue station, insisting on sharing his culture's food with the neighborhood. Family is family, he said when Harrison tried to thank him. Blood, adoption, choice doesn't matter. What matters is love and commitment. You have both. The party grew beyond their expectations again. More than 100 people filled the yard and spilled onto the sidewalk. Children played together while adults conversed and ate. The band played a mix of jazz, blues, and popular songs. Imani led garden tours every half hour to enthusiastic groups of neighbors. Jerome's solar demonstration drew crowds of impressed spectators. Jamal's art gallery in the garage had a steady stream of visitors, several of whom inquired seriously about purchasing pieces. Around 3 p.m., Harrison found himself standing with Patricia Monroe, the CPS caseworker whose initial investigation had terrified them all. She'd been invited and had come, curious to see the family in their natural environment. This is remarkable, she said, watching the children move confidently through the crowd, greeting neighbors, accepting congratulations. When I first investigated, I was concerned about the unconventional nature of your family. But seeing how embedded you are in this community, how supported these children are, it's exactly what child welfare should look like. Thank you for giving us a chance, Harrison said. For seeing past the irregularity to the reality of a working family. Thank you for stepping up when you could have just called the authorities and washed your hands of the situation. These children needed someone exactly like you. She paused, then added, I'm recommending early closure of your case. You've exceeded every requirement. There's no reason for continued monitoring. Relief and pride swelled in Harrison's chest. That means a lot. Thank you. As the party continued, Harrison found himself in multiple meaningful conversations. Thomas Wright, the engineering professor who'd praised Jerome at the first party, returned with information about summer programs for talented young scientists. Jerome should apply. Full scholarships available for kids with his abilities and drive. The high school art teacher who'd invited Jamal to workshops brought a colleague from a prestigious art school. Your son has exceptional talent. When he's ready for college, we'd love to recruit him. We offer full scholarships to students who demonstrate both skill and passion. Several neighbors approached Harrison about establishing a community resource center for foster families. Your story showed us that there's a need, one woman explained. Families struggling to stay together, kids aging out of the system with no support, teenagers trying to navigate independence alone. What if we created a place that offered practical help? Food pantry, clothing closet, tutoring, mentorship? The idea resonated deeply with Harrison. I'd be interested in funding something like that. Let's talk seriously about making it happen. Destiny overheard the conversation and joined in, her eyes bright with excitement. That's exactly what I want to do with my social work degree. Create resources that actually help families stay together. Can I be involved in planning this? Absolutely, Harrison said. It's your vision as much as anyone's. During the party, something unexpected happened. A young woman approached Harrison hesitantly, introduced herself as Keisha Marshall, and explained that she'd read the newspaper article that morning. I'm aging out of foster care in 2 months, she said quietly. I have a younger brother still in the system. I've been looking for ways to keep us together, but everyone says it's impossible. Your story gave me hope. Can I talk to you about how you made it work? Harrison spent 30 minutes speaking with Keisha, giving her contact information for lawyers and social services advocates who might help. He also got her information and promised to follow up. Don't give up on keeping your brother with you. If Destiny could do it at 16, you can do it at 17. And you won't be alone. I'll help however I can. Watching Keisha walk away with renewed determination, Harrison felt the impact of their story multiply. This was bigger than one family. This was about changing how communities responded to foster children, showing that unconventional solutions could work, inspiring others to step up and help. As evening fell and the party began winding down, Harrison gathered the children together for a toast. Neighbors crowded around, curious about what the guardian would say. 6 months ago, Harrison began, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet yard, I came to this house planning to destroy it. I saw it as a symbol of a past I wanted to forget. Instead, I found 4 children who'd already saved it, who'd transformed it into something beautiful. They didn't just save the house. They saved me. He looked at each child in turn. Destiny, your courage and determination inspire me every day. Jerome, your brilliant mind and passion for science remind me why curiosity matters. Jamal, your art shows me beauty I'd stopped seeing. And Imani, your joy and faith teach me to hope even when things seem hard. His voice grew thick with emotion. You 4 made me remember what my mother taught me, that kindness matters more than money, that family is chosen as much as given, that love is the only thing worth building a life around. Thank you for choosing me to be your family. Thank you for letting me love you. Thank you for being mine. The children rushed him simultaneously, all 4 wrapping around him in a group hug that made the crowd, collectively. When they pulled back, all 5 of them had tears in their eyes and smiles on their faces. Mrs. Washington raised her glass of lemonade. To family, she called out. However it's formed, whoever it includes. To love that rebuilds what was broken. To hope that blooms in unlikely places. To this family and this community that supports them. To family, the crowd echoed, raising their own glasses. The party continued for another hour, but that moment of communal celebration remained the emotional peak. As neighbors eventually began leaving, each stopped to hug the children and Harrison, to express their support and affection, to promise continued presence in their lives. Cleaning up afterward, the children were exhausted but happy. They worked together efficiently, a well-oiled team that had learned through months of surviving together how to divide labor and support each other. Best party ever, Imani declared as she helped fold tablecloths. Better than the first one? Jerome teased. Way better. Because this time we're really a family. Like legally and everything. We were always really a family, Jamal pointed out quietly. The legal stuff just made other people recognize it. Smart observation, Harrison said. Legal recognition matters for protection and rights. But you're right, Jamal. The real family was formed the moment you 4 decided to take care of each other in that group home, and the moment I decided to help instead of call the police. Everything else is just paperwork. Destiny, carrying a stack of folding chairs, paused to look at Harrison with an expression of profound gratitude. I don't think I've said this clearly enough, so I'm saying it now. Thank you. Not just for the practical stuff like money and lawyers and guardianship. Thank you for seeing us, for believing we were worth saving, for giving us a future when we couldn't see past tomorrow. Harrison set down the table he'd been folding and walked over to hug her. You were always worth saving, Destiny. All of you. I just had the privilege of being the one who got to do it. That night, after the children were in bed, Harrison sat alone in the living room, processing the day. The house was quiet except for the old heating system's familiar hum. He looked around at the space that had once been his childhood home, abandoned and falling apart, then rescued and transformed by children who needed it as much as he'd once needed stability and love. The walls held Jamal's artwork now. The shelves displayed Jerome's science projects. The windowsills overflowed with Imani's plants and gardening books. Destiny's college textbooks were stacked neatly on the coffee table, a reminder of the education she was finally able to pursue. Every room bore evidence of life being lived fully, of children growing and thriving. This house had seen poverty and struggle during Harrison's childhood. It had seen abandonment and decay during his absence. Now it was seeing healing and growth, second chances and new beginnings. The house itself seemed happy, if such a thing were possible, filled with laughter and love instead of emptiness. Harrison's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Saw the photos from today on social media. The family looks happy. You look happy. Proud of you, boss. He smiled and replied, Thanks, Rachel. Couldn't have done it without your support. Another text, this time from Mrs. Washington. Your mother would be so proud, Harry. She'd love those children as much as you do. Sleep well knowing you honored her memory. That thought, more than anything else, brought Harrison peace. His mother had sacrificed everything for him, believing her love and sacrifice would enable him to do good in the world. For decades he'd thought good meant business success and wealth accumulation. But his mother's definition of good had been simpler and more profound. Helping others, showing kindness, building family and community. These children had taught him what his mother meant. They'd shown him that success measured in dollars meant nothing compared to success measured in lives changed, in children saved, in families formed. He'd traded luxury penthouses and board meetings for mismatched furniture and parent-teacher conferences. And he'd never been happier. The adoption proceedings were still pending, but Harrison no longer worried they wouldn't go through. The guardianship was solid. The family was thriving. The community supported them. The children were safe and loved and full of hope for their futures. Everything else was just a matter of time and paperwork. Tomorrow he'd take the kids to the movies. Sunday they'd work in the garden, preparing it for winter while Imani explained what needed to be done and why. Monday he'd attend Jerome's science fair and Jamal's art workshop. Tuesday, Destiny had a college study group he'd help her prepare for. The week would unfold with the beautiful mundanity of family life, filled with small moments that mattered more than grand gestures. This was what his mother had wanted for him. Not wealth, but richness of life. Not success, but significance. Not achievement, but love. He'd finally understood and he'd finally built the life she'd envisioned for him. Before heading to his bedroom, Harrison stopped in the doorway of each child's room one final time, a nightly ritual he'd developed. For children sleeping peacefully, safe in the knowledge that someone loved them unconditionally, that they'd wake up tomorrow in the same place with the same family. Such simple security, yet so rare for children who'd bounced through the foster system for years. "Good night, my loves," Harrison whispered to the sleeping house. "Thank you for being mine." The house seemed to embrace him in return, warm and solid, full of life and love and second chances. Both Harrison and the house had been saved by 4 orphan children who dared to hope things could be better. Together they'd all found home. January brought frigid temperatures and the adoption hearing date. Harrison had been preparing for months, working with his legal team to ensure every document was perfect, every requirement met, every potential objection anticipated. The children had also prepared, attending counseling sessions to ensure they understood what adoption meant and genuinely wanted it. The morning of the hearing, Harrison woke at 5 a.m., too nervous to sleep. He'd already moved most of his belongings into the house on Oakwood Street, though he technically maintained the penthouse for occasional overnight work needs. This adoption would make the move permanent and complete. These children would legally be his children, not just his wards or guardians. The weight of that permanence both thrilled and terrified him. By 7 a.m., the house was bustling with activity. Destiny had laid out everyone's court clothes the night before. Jerome and Jamal took turns in the shower, debating which tie looked more serious. Imani practiced standing still, something she found challenging on normal days and nearly impossible when excited. "Why do we have to dress up?" Imani asked for the 3rd time, fidgeting with her dress. "The judge already knows we want to be adopted. Because showing respect for the process is important," Destiny explained patiently. "Courts care about presentation. We need to show we're serious and respectful. But we are serious. Can't we just tell them that?" Harrison knelt down to Imani's level, straightening her collar. "We can and we will. But first impressions matter. We want the judge to see that we're a real family who takes this commitment seriously. Can you help us show that?" Imani nodded solemnly. "I'll be very serious. No fidgeting." "Maybe just less fidgeting," Harrison amended with a smile. "You're still 8. Some fidgeting is expected." They arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early, a buffer Harrison had insisted on. Their lawyer, David Park, met them in the hallway with a confident smile and final instructions. "This should be straightforward," David assured them. "We have overwhelming documentation, successful guardianship period, glowing reports from CPS, letters of recommendation from teachers and neighbors, psychological evaluations showing healthy attachment and well-being. Judge Williams handled your guardianship hearing and was favorable then. No reason to think this will be different." Still, Harrison's hands shook slightly as they entered the courtroom. This was it. The moment that would either legally bind them as a family forever or send them back to continue waiting and worrying. He held Imani's hand on one side and Destiny's on the other, the 4 of them presenting a united front. Judge Williams entered and everyone rose. She settled behind her bench, reviewed the file briefly, then looked at the family with warm eyes. "We meet again," she said. Mr. Pierce, children, it's good to see you. I've reviewed your adoption petition and all supporting documents. Quite thorough, I must say. Thank you, Your Honor, David responded. I'll hear statements from the petitioner and from each child, then make my ruling. Mr. Pierce, you may begin. Harrison stood, his prepared speech suddenly feeling inadequate for the emotion of the moment. He cleared his throat and began. Your Honor, 6 months ago I discovered these children living in my abandoned childhood home. They'd taken a broken, neglected structure and transformed it into something beautiful through sheer determination and love for each other. In doing so, they reminded me of everything I'd forgotten about what makes life meaningful. They saved my house and in many ways they saved me. He glanced at the children. Since then, I've had the privilege of being their guardian. I've watched Destiny pursue her education with fierce dedication. I've celebrated Jerome's scientific achievements and Jamal's artistic growth. I've learned about gardening from an 8-year-old who knows more about roses than I ever will. These children have taught me about resilience, hope, and unconditional love. His voice grew thick with emotion. Adopting them isn't charity or obligation. It's the greatest privilege of my life. I'm asking this court to make permanent what already exists in our hearts. A family built on choice, commitment, and love. Please let me be their father officially and forever. Judge Williams made notes, then nodded. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Destiny, would you like to speak? Destiny stood, her hands clasped in front of her to stop their trembling. Your Honor, I spent my entire life without a permanent family. I aged out of foster care without anyone to catch me. When I took my siblings and ran, I did it because I knew the system would separate us. We'd all lost so much already. I couldn't let us lose each other too. She looked at Harrison with obvious affection. Harrison could have called the police when he found us. He could have had us removed and continued with his original plans. Instead, he chose to help. To really help, not just throw money at the problem but actually become part of our lives. He shows up every day. He goes to school conferences and doctor appointments. He helps with homework and listens to our problems. He's everything a father should be. Tears streamed down her face now. We want this adoption more than anything. We want to be his children legally. We want the security of knowing no one can separate our family ever again. Please give us that. Jerome and Jamal spoke next, each expressing their gratitude for Harrison's presence in their lives and their strong desire for the adoption to proceed. Jerome spoke about finally feeling safe enough to plan for a future beyond next week. Jamal talked about having space to pursue his art without fear of losing everything. Finally, Imani took the stand, her legs swinging from the chair that was too tall for her. Judge Williams smiled at the little girl with obvious affection. Imani, do you understand what adoption means? The judge asked gently. It means Harrison becomes my forever dad, Imani answered clearly. Not just my guardian or my helper. My actual dad who can never not be my dad. That's right. And is that what you want? More than anything. He's already my dad in my heart. I want him to be my dad on paper too. And you're happy living with Mr. Pierce? You feel safe and loved. Very safe. Very loved. He helps me with my garden and reads me stories and tucks me in at night. He's the best dad ever. Judge Williams nodded, clearly moved. She reviewed her notes one more time, then looked up at the family with a decisive expression. In my 20 years on the bench, I've presided over hundreds of adoption cases. Many involve infants placed with waiting families. Some involve step-parents formalizing relationships with their spouse's children. Occasionally, I see cases like this, older children finding family after years in the system. She paused, and Harrison's heart pounded so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. This case is unique in its origin story but exemplary in its outcome. These children were failed by a system designed to protect them. They took matters into their own hands, which was technically illegal but undeniably brave. Mr. Pierce could have responded with judgment and punishment. Instead, he responded with compassion and commitment. Judge Williams smiled. The evidence before me is overwhelming. These children are thriving. Mr. Pierce has demonstrated unwavering commitment to their well-being. The guardianship period was flawless. Every person interviewed about this family speaks glowingly of their bond and genuine care for each other. I see no reason to deny this petition. She picked up her gavel. Therefore, I hereby grant the petition for adoption. Harrison Pierce, you are now the legal father of Destiny Carter, Jerome Johnson, Jamal Johnson, and Imani Thompson. They are your children in every way that matters under law. This family is permanent and protected. Congratulations. The gavel came down with a decisive crack, and the courtroom erupted in quiet celebration. Harrison felt tears streaming down his face as the children rushed him, all four wrapping around him in a massive group hug. They were his now. Legally, officially, permanently his. "We're a family," Imani said, her voice muffled against Harrison's chest. "A forever family." "A forever family," Harrison confirmed, unable to say more without completely breaking down. Outside the courthouse, David Park congratulated them warmly. "That was one of the most moving adoption hearings I've ever attended. You're officially a family now. No one can challenge that or take it away. You're protected forever." Mrs. Washington and Mrs. Chen were waiting outside, having taken time off work to be present for this important moment. They hugged each child and Harrison, celebrating the official formation of this unconventional family. "I knew it would work out," Mrs. Washington said, wiping her eyes. "God has a plan and this was always part of it. These babies were meant to find you, and you were meant to find them." Harrison had arranged for a celebration lunch at the children's favorite restaurant, a local diner known for its comfort food and welcoming atmosphere. As they settled into a large booth, Harrison realized this was the first meal they'd eat together as an official family. The thought made him irrationally emotional. "Dad, are you crying again?" Jerome asked, half teasing and half concerned. "Happy tears?" Harrison said, wiping his eyes. "I'm just really happy." "Me too," Destiny said softly. "I've never been this happy. I didn't know happy like this existed." Over burgers and fries and milkshakes, they talked about what the adoption meant practically. Name changes were optional. The children could keep their birth surnames or take Harrison's. Destiny chose to become Destiny Pierce, wanting a fresh start. Jerome and Jamal decided to hyphenate, becoming Jerome Johnson Pierce and Jamal Johnson Pierce, honoring their parents' memory while embracing their new family. Imani chose Imani Pierce without hesitation, young enough to embrace the new identity completely. "We should take a family photo," Jamal suggested. Official first photo as the Pierce family. They ended up at a local photography studio, where a patient photographer spent 2 hours capturing their new family in various poses and settings. Some photos were formal, everyone in their court clothes looking serious and official. Others were playful, making silly faces, hugging, laughing. The photographer, a middle-aged woman named Sandra, got teary watching them interact. "You can tell this is real love," she said during a break. "Not just posed for photos. You guys really are a family." "We really are," Harrison agreed, looking at his children with undisguised adoration. That evening, back at home, they celebrated with a special dinner Harrison had arranged to be catered from an upscale restaurant. But more important than the food was the sense of relief and joy permeating the house. The uncertainty was over. The fear of separation was gone. They were permanent now, protected by law, bound by love, officially a family in every way. Before bed, Harrison gathered the children in the living room for a family meeting. "I want to talk about what happens next," he said. "We're officially a family now. What changes? What stays the same? How do we move forward?" "Nothing needs to change," Destiny said. "What we have works. Let's just keep doing it." "Agreed," Jerome said. "Maybe we can finally stop being scared something will go wrong." "I'd like that," Jamal admitted. "I still wake up sometimes worried this is all a dream." "It's not a dream," Harrison promised. "This is real. Permanent. Forever. We're a family and families stick together through everything." "Through everything," Imani repeated seriously. "That's what families do." They talked for another hour about hopes and plans. Destiny shared her excitement about starting her social work program in earnest, now that she didn't have to worry about keeping the family together alone. Jerome discussed his plans for the regional science fair. Jamal described an art show his teacher wanted him to participate in. Imani talked about expanding her garden in the spring. Harrison listened and encouraged, marveling at how far they'd all come. 6 months ago, these were children surviving day to day, afraid to plan beyond next week. Now they were making long-term plans, pursuing passions, building futures. That transformation was the real victory, more important than any legal document. That night, after everyone was in bed, Harrison sat alone in his childhood bedroom, which he'd reclaimed as his own space in the house. He thought about his mother, who'd slept in this same room decades ago. She'd worked herself to death trying to give him opportunities. Now he was giving opportunities to 4 children who needed them desperately. The circle felt complete in a way he couldn't quite articulate. His phone buzzed with congratulations texts. Rachel had sent champagne emojis and a message, "Proud of you, boss. You're doing important work." Thomas Wright sent congratulations and a reminder about Jerome's summer program application deadline. The neighbors had created a group chat that was blowing up with celebration messages and promises of another neighborhood party in the spring. But the text that moved Harrison most came from Patricia Monroe, the CPS caseworker. "Congratulations on your official family. I'm proud to have been a small part of your journey. Those children are lucky to have you and you're lucky to have them. May your family thrive forever." Harrison saved that text, a reminder that sometimes the system worked, that sometimes the people within it cared enough to see beyond bureaucracy to human need. Patricia had given them a chance when she could have removed the children immediately. That chance had led to this permanent family. Before turning off his light, Harrison looked at the framed family photo on his nightstand. The official portrait, all 5 of them dressed up and smiling, looked back at him. Destiny's arm around Imani. Jerome and Jamal side by side as always. Harrison in the center, surrounded by his children, his family, his heart. "We did it, Mom," he whispered to the photograph and to his mother's memory. "We built something beautiful. We chose love. I hope that makes you proud." In the morning, they'd wake up as an official family for the first time. In the morning, the daily routines would resume. Breakfast together, school drop-offs, homework help, dinner preparations, bedtime stories. The adoption didn't change the practical reality of their lives. But it changed everything emotionally. The fear was gone. The uncertainty was eliminated. They were permanent now, protected, secure, officially and legally family forever. That security would allow them all to breathe deeper, dream bigger, love without reservation. Harrison had spent 52 years searching for purpose and meaning. He'd found it in 4 children who'd needed him as much as he'd needed them. The house he'd tried to destroy had become the foundation for the most important thing he'd ever built: a family. Outside, snow began falling softly, covering the garden Imani tended so carefully. In spring, the roses would bloom again. The cycle would continue: growth and dormancy, death and rebirth, endings that were really beginnings. His mother's roses had survived 3 decades through community care, waiting to return home. His family had survived poverty and loss and system failures, waiting to come together. Everything had happened exactly as it needed to. The timing, the circumstances, the meeting of people who needed each other desperately. Call it fate or coincidence or the universe working in mysterious ways. Harrison called it family, and that was enough. Spring arrived early that year, bringing warm temperatures and the first signs of Imani's garden awakening from winter dormancy. The bulbs she'd planted with Harrison the previous fall pushed through the soil, promising brilliant color in weeks to come. The rose canes, carefully pruned and mulched, showed tiny green buds ready to explode into leaves and eventually flowers. "Look, Dad," Imani called from the garden one Saturday morning in early March. "The tulips are coming up. Just like Miss Washington said they would." Harrison joined her, coffee mug in hand, to admire the small green shoots. "They look healthy. You did a good job protecting them over winter." "I followed the instructions exactly. And I talk to them sometimes. Destiny says that's silly, but I think plants like being talked to." "Your mother used to talk to her roses," Harrison said, the memory suddenly vivid. "She'd tell them about her day, her worries, her hopes." "I think you're right. Plants do respond to care and attention." Imani beamed at the comparison. At 9 years old now, she'd grown several inches and lost some of her baby roundness. But she remained the same fearless, joyful child who'd grabbed Harrison's hand that first day and dragged him to see the garden. Her faith in good things never wavered, even when reality gave her reasons to doubt. Inside, Destiny was studying at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and notes. She'd completed her first semester of community college with straight A's, impressing her professors with her maturity and dedication. Now in her second semester, she was taking more challenging courses while maintaining her part-time work at the library. Harrison had tried to convince her to quit working, pointing out that between his financial support and her course load, she had enough responsibilities. But Destiny had refused, explaining that work gave her independence and purpose beyond being a student and sister. "I need something that's mine," she'd said. "Something I earned without your help. Does that make sense?" It did make sense, so Harrison supported her choice while ensuring she wasn't overextending herself. They'd learned through family therapy that Destiny needed to maintain some level of control over her life, that giving up work would feel like losing herself rather than gaining freedom. "How's the studying going?" Harrison asked, refilling his coffee and settling across from her at the table. "Good. I'm working on a paper about family preservation and child welfare. Turns out I have personal experience with the topic." She smiled wryly. "Professor Kennedy wants me to consider publishing it. Says my insider perspective combined with academic research could contribute to the field." That's amazing, Destiny. Your voice deserves to be heard. It's weird to think about. A year ago I was just trying to survive. Now I'm writing papers that might actually influence policy. How did that happen? You happened, Harrison said simply. Your courage, determination, and refusal to accept a system that wanted to separate your family. That's worth writing about. Jerome appeared in the kitchen, still in pajamas though it was nearly 10 a.m. At 13 now, he'd hit a growth spurt that made all his pants suddenly too short. He was also developing the appetite of a teenager, capable of eating astonishing amounts of food without gaining weight. Morning, he mumbled, heading straight for the pantry. We have pancake mix? I can make pancakes, Harrison offered. Fresh ones are better than mix. Really? You know how to make pancakes from scratch? Harrison laughed. I've learned a lot of things in the past year, including how to cook. Your mother taught me well. Destiny taught you, Jerome corrected. She's the one who can actually cook. Fair point. But I'm improving. Soon I might even be trusted with dinner unsupervised. Don't push it, Destiny teased. Your spaghetti still has issues. The family banter felt natural and comfortable. They developed rhythms and inside jokes, a shared language born from months of living together. Harrison loved these mundane moments as much as the big milestones. This was real family life. Saturday morning pancakes, gentle teasing, comfortable silence. Jamal descended the stairs with paint on his hands, evidence that he'd been working in his studio since dawn. The garage had been fully converted into a professional art space, with proper lighting, ventilation, and storage for his expanding collection of materials and finished pieces. His work had matured significantly, transitioning from promising to genuinely impressive. I finished the commission, Jamal announced, showing them a photo on his phone. The painting depicted the neighborhood at sunset, houses bathed in golden light, gardens blooming, children playing in yards. It was beautiful and evocative, capturing the essence of their community with sophisticated technique. Mrs. Rodriguez is going to love it, Destiny said, admiring the photo. I hope so. She's paying good money for it. Jamal had started taking commissions after neighbors saw his work at the fall party. What began as friendly requests had evolved into serious business. He'd painted several neighborhood portraits, family scenes, and even a few pet portraits. The income went into a savings account Harrison had helped him establish, money for art school when the time came. You should be proud, Harrison told him. You're building a portfolio and a reputation. Colleges are going to fight over you. Jamal ducked his head, still shy about praise despite months of encouragement. I just like painting. The fact that people want to buy my paintings still surprises me. Get used to it. You're genuinely talented. After pancakes, the family spent the day working on various projects together. Harrison and Imani worked in the garden, preparing beds for spring planting. Destiny studied while keeping an eye on everyone. Jerome tinkered with a new solar project, trying to increase efficiency. Jamal painted in his studio, the door open so he could hear the family moving around the house. This was their routine now, weekends together as a family, pursuing individual interests while remaining connected. Weekdays were structured around school and work. Harrison took the kids to school each morning, worked from home or the office until afternoon, then returned for homework help and dinner. Destiny worked 3 evenings a week at the library. They all ate together whenever possible, maintaining that connection through shared meals. The house renovation had been completed over the winter, transforming the structure while preserving its character. The kitchen was larger and more functional, with modern appliances and enough counter space for multiple cooks. A second bathroom had been added upstairs, eliminating morning battles for shower access. The basement had been finished as a teen hangout space with comfortable furniture, a television, and space for Jerome's science projects. Destiny had her own room now, decorated in calming blues and filled with books and study materials. But the most important changes were invisible. The sense of permanence, the absence of fear, the security that came from knowing this family couldn't be torn apart. The children had relaxed in ways Harrison hadn't realized were possible, as though they'd been holding their breath for years and could finally exhale. That evening Mrs. Washington came over for dinner, a regular occurrence now. She'd become an honorary grandmother to the children, offering wisdom and support whenever needed. Over Destiny's carefully prepared chicken parmesan, Mrs. Washington told stories about the neighborhood's history, about Harrison's mother, about the community that had existed here for generations. This house has good bones, she said, looking around the renovated dining room. But more than that, it has good spirit. Your mama loved it, Harry. She'd be so happy to see it full of life again, full of children who are loved and safe. I think about her often, Harrison admitted. Especially when I'm with the kids. I find myself doing things she used to do, saying things she used to say. It's like she's still here guiding me. She is here, Mrs. Washington said with certainty. In you, in this house, in these roses she loved so much. Love doesn't die just because the person does. It continues, transforming but never disappearing. After dinner, while the kids cleared dishes, Harrison and Mrs. Washington sat on the porch swing in the cool evening air. The garden was visible in the fading light, Imani's careful work evident in the organized beds and thriving plants. You know what I love most about what you've done? Mrs. Washington asked. You didn't just save these children. You let them save you. So many people want to be rescuers, want to swoop in and fix everything without accepting help in return. But you recognized that you needed them as much as they needed you. That's rare and beautiful. I was so lost, Harrison confessed. Successful by every measure society values but empty inside. These kids showed me what really matters. They gave me purpose and meaning. I'm the one who should be grateful. Mutual gratitude, mutual healing. That's how family should work. Everyone giving, everyone receiving, everyone growing together. The conversation was interrupted by shrieks of laughter from inside. Harrison and Mrs. Washington went to investigate and found the children engaged in an impromptu dance party in the living room, music blasting from Jerome's phone. Destiny had abandoned her usual composure and was spinning Imani around. The twins were attempting dance moves they'd clearly seen online but couldn't quite execute. Join us. Imani called, grabbing Harrison's hand and pulling him into the chaos. What followed was 15 minutes of complete silliness. Bad dancing, laughter, and joy unrestrained by self-consciousness or worry. Mrs. Washington filmed it on her phone, capturing the moment for posterity. Later, watching the video, Harrison would see what she saw. A family completely at ease with each other, loving each other without reservation, finding joy in simple togetherness. This was what he'd been missing all those years. This connection, this authenticity, this love. He'd had wealth and success but not this, the most important thing humans could possess, belonging. As March turned to April, the family hit new milestones. Destiny was accepted into a competitive summer internship program at a local social services agency. Jerome won the regional science fair with his solar project, earning a scholarship to a prestigious summer program for young scientists. Jamal was invited to display his work at a professional gallery alongside adult artists. Imani's garden became the subject of a local news feature about young environmentalists. Each achievement was celebrated together, the family gathering to congratulate and support the individual's success. But they also learned to navigate disappointments together. Jerome's rejection from one summer program before being accepted to another, Jamal's first art show piece that didn't sell, Destiny's frustrating encounter with a dismissive professor, Imani's garden plot that got overrun by rabbits. Through therapy and practice, they'd learned healthy communication patterns. When Jerome was frustrated, he could express it without lashing out. When Jamal felt insecure about his art, he could ask for reassurance instead of withdrawing. When Imani was sad, she could cry without fear of burdening others. When Destiny felt overwhelmed, she could ask for help instead of trying to handle everything alone. Harrison learned his own lessons about parenting through trial and error. He learned that teenagers needed both boundaries and freedom, that being too permissive was as problematic as being too strict. He learned to pick his battles, to distinguish between important issues and minor annoyances. He learned that showing up consistently mattered more than grand gestures. He also learned to accept help from his community. Mrs. Washington taught him about adolescent development from her years of raising 5 children. Mrs. Chin advised him on supporting the children's education. Thomas Wright became a mentor for Jerome and a resource for Harrison when science questions exceeded his knowledge. The art teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, helped guide Jamal's development and connected him with opportunities. In May, Harrison made a significant decision. He announced his intention to step down as CEO of his company, transitioning to chairman of the board instead. The move shocked his business associates but didn't surprise anyone who knew about his new family. I can't run a company the way I used to and be the father these children need, he explained to his board. My priorities have changed. Family comes first now. The company will be fine under new leadership. I'll still be involved but not consumed by it. Rachel supported the decision wholeheartedly. You've seemed happier in the past year than in all the years I've worked for you. If stepping back as CEO maintains that happiness, do it. The transition process began with Harrison identifying and mentoring a successor. It felt strange to let go of the company he'd built from nothing, but it also felt right. The company had been his entire identity for 3 decades. Now it was just one part of a much fuller life. On a beautiful Saturday in late May, the family hosted their third neighborhood party, this one celebrating Imani's 10th birthday. The garden was in full spring bloom, Imani's tulips and daffodils creating rivers of color while the roses prepared for their summer show. More than 100 neighbors attended, bringing gifts and good wishes for the birthday girl. Imani, now 10 and even more confident, gave garden tours with professional polish. She explained plant selection, soil composition, companion planting, and seasonal care with the expertise of someone 3 times her age. Several adults took notes, genuinely learning from this remarkable child who could make anything grow. The party included a moment Harrison would treasure forever. The entire neighborhood singing happy birthday to Imani while she stood surrounded by her garden, her family, and her community. The look on her face, pure joy mixed with belonging, captured everything they'd built together over the past year. After the party, when the yard was cleaned and the children were in bed, Harrison sat alone in the garden as had become his habit. The night was cool and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Imani's roses climbed the fence, ready to bloom any day now. Everything was peaceful and right. His phone buzzed with a message from Keisha Marshall, the young woman who'd approached him at the previous fall's party. Update: my brother and I are staying together. Found a lawyer who helped me get guardianship. Working and going to school like destiny. Wanted you to know your story inspired us. Thank you. Harrison smiled, tears pricking his eyes. This was the ripple effect of their story, the impact that extended beyond their immediate family. By being public about their unconventional path, they'd shown others that keeping families together was possible, that the system's limitations didn't have to be the final word. He replied to Keisha, "That's wonderful news. You're as brave as destiny. If you ever need anything, reach out. We're here for you." Another family saved. Another set of siblings staying together. Another testimony to the power of choosing love over bureaucracy. It wouldn't fix the broken foster care system, but it helped individual children, and that mattered. Looking at the house, lights glowing warmly in windows, Harrison felt profound contentment. This was home. Not because of the structure or the location, but because of the people inside it. His children, sleeping safely, secure in the knowledge they were loved unconditionally. The house that had started as a painful reminder of poverty and loss had transformed into a sanctuary of healing and growth. His mother's roses had survived decades and returned home. 4 orphan children had survived system failures and found family. Harrison himself had survived emotional emptiness and found purpose. Everything broken had been rebuilt. Everything lost had been found. Everything that seemed hopeless had bloomed with hope. The house that bloomed indeed. Bloomed with roses and love and second chances for everyone lucky enough to live within its walls. November arrived with crisp air and the first hints of winter approaching. The garden transitioned to its dormant state, though Imani had planted cold-hardy pansies and ornamental cabbage to provide color through the winter months. The family had been officially together for a year now, and the transformation was remarkable. Destiny was thriving in college, maintaining excellent grades while working and helping manage the household. Her internship at the social services agency had led to a job offer for after graduation. She'd also begun speaking publicly about foster care reform, using her story to advocate for policy changes. Several lawmakers had taken notice, inviting her to testify about keeping sibling groups together. Jerome, now 14, had been accepted to a prestigious STEM academy for high school. His solar panel project had evolved into a small business, with several neighbors hiring him to install residential systems. Thomas Wright continued mentoring him, guiding his college preparation and research opportunities. Jamal's art was gaining recognition beyond the neighborhood. A gallery in downtown Detroit had begun representing his work, and several pieces had sold for significant amounts. He'd been interviewed by art magazines interested in the young prodigy painting urban renewal. The attention embarrassed him, but Harrison encouraged him to embrace it. Representation and visibility mattered, especially for young artists of color. Imani, at 10, had become the neighborhood's go-to gardening expert. She consulted on landscape design, taught children's gardening workshops at the library, and maintained her own garden with professional skill. Mrs. Washington joked that Imani had surpassed her in knowledge and would probably write a gardening book someday. Harrison had successfully transitioned out of the CEO role, maintaining board oversight while freeing his days for family priorities. The decision had cost him some business relationships. People who'd valued him only for his corporate power drifted away. But true friends remained, and new relationships formed based on who he was as a person and father rather than as a business leader. One Thursday evening in mid-November, Harrison gathered the family in the living room for a special announcement. They settled on the couch and chairs, curious about what their father wanted to share. "I have something to show you," Harrison began, pulling out his phone. "But first I want to say how proud I am of all of you. This past year has been the best year of my life. You've grown, achieved amazing things, and stayed together through challenges. You're remarkable people." "Thanks, Dad," Destiny said, speaking for all of them. "But what's the announcement?" Harrison pulled up a website on his phone and showed them. "I've established a foundation, the Rose Garden Foundation, named after Mom's garden and Imani's dedication to keeping it alive. Its mission is to help keep sibling groups in foster care together, funding legal assistance, housing support, and other resources to prevent family separation." The children gathered around to read the website. It was professional and comprehensive, outlining programs, eligibility criteria, and success stories. Harrison had seeded it with a significant donation from his personal wealth, enough to help dozens of families immediately. "The first family we're helping is Keisha Marshall and her brother," Harrison continued. "They need housing assistance and legal support. We're covering both. There are 15 other sibling groups on our waiting list. We'll help them all." Destiny's eyes filled with tears. "You're doing this because of us. I'm doing this because the system failed you and it's failing countless other children. If sharing our story and using my resources can prevent even one unnecessary separation, it's worth it. But yes, you inspired this. Your courage and determination showed me what's possible when people refuse to accept injustice. Can I help?" Destiny asked immediately. "I could work with families, explain resources, share my experience. I want to be involved." "I was hoping you'd say that. I need someone who understands the system from the inside. You'd be perfect." They spent the next hour discussing the foundation, brainstorming programs and approaches. Jerome suggested creating a database of foster care-friendly lawyers. Jamal proposed art therapy programs for traumatized children. Imani wanted gardening programs to give kids healing activities. Every idea was noted, considered, and added to the foundation's developing structure. The conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Harrison answered to find Patricia Monroe, their former CPS caseworker, standing on the porch with a gift bag. "Patricia? What a surprise. Come in." She entered, greeting the children warmly. "I heard about the foundation. I wanted to deliver this personally and say how proud I am of what you're doing." The gift bag contained a plaque. "To the Pierce family for showing us that love builds families stronger than biology ever could. Thank you for being an example of hope." Patricia stayed for coffee, catching up on the children's progress and discussing the foundation. "I've been in child welfare for 20 years, she said. "I've seen so many siblings separated unnecessarily. Having a resource like your foundation could literally change lives. I want to help however I can." She became an advisor to the foundation on the spot, connecting Harrison to other social workers and advocates who'd support the mission. By the time she left, the foundation had gained valuable partnerships and credibility within the child welfare system. That weekend, the family worked together on a project that had been discussed for months, creating a memorial garden for Harrison's mother. They cleared a section of the backyard, installed a bench donated by Mrs. Washington, and planted roses from cuttings that had descended from his mother's original plants. Jamal designed a beautiful painted sign, "Sarah Pierce Memorial Garden, where love blooms eternal." The dedication ceremony was small and intimate. Just the family, Mrs. Washington, Mrs. Chen, and a few close neighbors. Harrison spoke about his mother, his voice breaking as he described her sacrifices and unconditional love. Destiny read a poem she'd written about mothers who love beyond their capacity. Each child planted a rose bush, creating a living memorial that would bloom year after year. "Your mother would be so proud," Mrs. Washington said, squeezing Harrison's hand. "Not just of what you've accomplished but of who you've become. She raised a good man, Harry. A man who knows what matters." After the ceremony, Harrison found himself alone in the memorial garden with Imani. She was checking the newly planted roses, making sure they had adequate water and mulch. "Why are you crying, Dad?" she asked, noticing his tears. "Happy tears, sweetie. I'm thinking about how everything came full circle. My mother grew roses here. You brought them back. Now we're growing them in her honor, and they'll bloom forever because you know how to take care of them. I'll teach my kids someday," Imani said confidently. "And they'll teach their kids. Grandma Sarah's roses will never die as long as our family keeps growing them." The simple statement captured the essence of legacy. Love and knowledge passed down through generations, keeping the best parts of the past alive while building toward the future. Harrison's mother would never meet these children, but her influence shaped them through the values she'd instilled in Harrison. Her roses would bloom in gardens tended by great-great-grandchildren she'd never know existed. That night, the whole family gathered for a special dinner Harrison had arranged to be catered from the upscale restaurant. It was a celebration of multiple things: the foundation's launch, the memorial garden dedication, 1 year of being an official family, and simply being together. During dessert, Harrison raised his glass for a toast. "A year ago, Judge Williams made our family official. But the truth is, we became family the moment we chose each other. Destiny, you chose to trust me instead of running. Jerome and Jamal, you chose to accept me instead of resisting. Imani, you chose to call me dad before the paperwork made it legal. And I chose all of you before I fully understood what that choice meant." He looked at each child in turn. "You've taught me more in 1 year than I learned in the previous 52. You've shown me that family isn't about biology or perfection. It's about showing up, supporting each other, growing together. It's about choosing love every single day, even when it's hard." His voice grew thick with emotion. "I came to this house planning to destroy it, to erase painful memories and move on. Instead, I found you four had already saved it. In saving the house, you saved me. You gave me purpose and meaning. You made me a father, which is the greatest privilege of my life. You gave us a future," Destiny responded, her own voice emotional. "We were surviving, not living. You showed us what it means to be safe, supported, loved unconditionally. You proved that adults can keep their promises, that good things can last, that family is worth fighting for." Jerome added, "You believed in us when no one else did. You saw our potential instead of our problems. You let us be ourselves," Jamal said quietly. "You encouraged our dreams instead of telling us to be practical. You read me stories and help with my garden and never make me feel like I'm too much," Imani contributed. "You're the best dad ever." There wasn't a dry eye at the table. Harrison stood and gathered his children in a group hug, all 5 of them holding each other and crying happy tears. This was family, messy, emotional, imperfect, and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Harrison walked through the quiet house, reflecting on the journey that had led them here. He stopped in each child's doorway, watching them sleep peacefully. Destiny with her textbook still open on her desk, dedicated to her studies and her future. Jerome with science magazines scattered around his bed, his mind always working on the next project. Jamal with sketch pads on his nightstand, creativity flowing even in sleep. Imani with dirt still under her fingernails from the memorial garden planting, connected to the earth in a way that honored his mother's spirit. These were his children. Not by birth but by choice, by commitment, by love that transcended biological connection. They'd chosen him as much as he'd chosen them, building a family through mutual need and genuine affection. In the memorial garden, illuminated by soft outdoor lights, Harrison sat on the bench and looked at the newly planted roses. They'd need time to establish roots, to grow strong enough to survive winter and bloom in spring. But with proper care and attention they'd thrive. Just like his children, who'd needed time to establish roots in this family, to grow strong enough to face the world confidently. His phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. Saw the foundation announcement. "Brilliant idea. Your mother would be proud." "Hell, I'm proud. You've become the person you were always meant to be." Harrison smiled, replying, "Thanks, Rachel. I finally figured out what matters." "Family?" "Family," he confirmed. "Everything else is just details." A year ago he'd stood in this same garden, newly reunited with his childhood home, meeting 4 children who would change his life forever. He'd been lost then, successful but empty, searching for meaning he couldn't name. Those children had shown him the way home, not to a physical place but to a state of being, connected, purposeful, loving and loved. The house on Oakwood Street had witnessed poverty and struggle during his childhood. It had witnessed abandonment and decay during his absence. Now it witnessed healing and growth, second chances and new beginnings. The house had its own story to tell, that broken things can be repaired, that abandoned places can become homes again, that hope can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances. Harrison thought about the future. Graduations and college applications, first jobs and relationships, weddings and potentially grandchildren. His life, which had seemed complete at 52, was actually just beginning. These children would continue changing and growing, and he'd have the privilege of witnessing it all, supporting them through every challenge and celebrating every triumph. The path forward wouldn't be perfect. Teenagers would test boundaries. College would bring separation anxiety. Adult children would make choices Harrison might not agree with. Family would be complicated and sometimes frustrating. But it would also be worthwhile, meaningful, the most important thing he'd ever built. Mrs. Washington's porch light came on, and she stepped outside to water her plants. She waved when she saw Harrison in the garden. "Can't sleep?" she called over. "Just reflecting on how far we've come." She walked over to join him on the bench. "You know what I love most about your story? You didn't just change those children's lives. You let them change yours. So many people want to be rescuers without being willing to be rescued. But you understood that salvation goes both ways. I couldn't help but be changed by them. They're remarkable people who'd survive things that would break most adults. How could I not be transformed by witnessing that strength? Your mama knew you had that capacity for growth. She told me once, when you were about 10, that you had the biggest heart but would need life to crack it open. She worried you'd protect it too well, build walls too high. But she believed eventually something would break through those walls. These kids broke through them," Harrison said. "Completely demolished my defenses. I couldn't stay closed off in the face of their openness, their courage, their desperate need for someone to choose them." Mrs. Washington patted his hand. "That's how love works. It finds the cracks in our armor and floods in whether we're ready or not. You were ready even if you didn't know it." After she returned to her house, Harrison stayed in the garden a while longer. The memorial roses stood silent in the darkness, roots reaching down into soil that had nourished his mother's plants decades ago. In spring they'd bloom. In years to come, they'd grow large and established, creating a canopy of flowers and fragrance. Just like his family would grow. Roots deepening, branches extending, blossoms multiplying. From broken beginnings to beautiful present to hopeful future. From 4 orphan children and 1 emotionally barren businessman to a family of 5 connected by choice and commitment and unconditional love. Harrison stood and walked back to the house, his home, his heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and joys. Breakfast chaos, school drop-offs, work obligations, homework help, family dinner, bedtime routines. The beautiful mundanity of family life, each day building on the last, creating a foundation of memory and meaning. He stopped one more time in each child's doorway, a father checking on his children before bed. They were all sleeping peacefully, safe in their rooms, secure in their family. Tomorrow they'd wake up and the cycle would continue. Living, growing, loving, being a family. This was what his mother had wanted for him. This was what he'd been searching for without knowing it. This was home. Not a place but a collection of people who'd chosen to love each other despite every obstacle in their path. The house that had almost been destroyed now stood strong, filled with laughter and life. The garden that had died now bloomed again, tended by loving hands. The family that shouldn't have existed now thrived, built on hope and determination and the radical belief that love could overcome any obstacle. Harrison turned off the lights and headed to his own room. Tomorrow would be another day in the life of the Pierce family. Another ordinary, extraordinary day of being together, being family, being home. The house that bloomed had saved them all. For children who needed family, one man who needed purpose, and a neighborhood that needed to witness love's transformative power. From unlikely beginnings, something beautiful had grown. From broken pieces, something whole had been built. From endings, new beginnings had emerged. And the roses would bloom again in spring, generation after generation, remembering and celebrating the love that made everything possible. His mother's roses, Imani's garden, the Pierce family's legacy. Hope that refuses to die, love that creates family from strangers, beauty that emerges from the most difficult soil. This was the house that bloomed. This was the family that shouldn't exist but did. This was home, finally and forever, built on the strongest foundation possible. People who chose each other and never looked back.